Big deal.
Yep.
Start off with the numbers. Our area code 254.
Yes. With 159 cases yesterday, Kenya now is well over 5,000 cases. The specific number that we're looking at is 5,206. The numbers continue to rise. Over 4,000 tests conducted in over 24 hours. And these were the numbers that they arrived at. Likely to see, again, that numbers will increase.
What numbers?
Positive numbers from tests.
It's 254, like the area code. Yesterday's numbers. 254. Imagine.
So it's likely to see that, it'll keep getting higher. So that 254 launched 254 over the 5,000 mark. And Mombasa is, again, being touted as an area of concern when it comes to infections. We know that cessation of movement still exists for Nairobi and Mombasa. But yesterday we heard from the Ministry of Health that it's an issue and that they're seeing that more cases coming out of Mombasa is, again, a cause for concern. COVID-19 risk is greater in Mombasa. The region has an infection rate of about 107.9 per 100,000 people, and that is the country's highest. You're more likely to contract COVID-19 in Mombasa than in any other county, though Nairobi has the highest number of cases. Health Chief Administrative Secretary Mercy Mwangangi said Mombasa and Nairobi have the highest infection rates of COVID. And Mombasa, with a population of 1.3 million, according to the latest census, compared with that of 4.4 million in in Nairobi, gives indications that per 100,000 people, the rate of infection is much higher in the coastal county. That's what we see.
Sasa, lakini. Okay. We still are at about 151,000 total tests.
Yes, well under... and
this doesn't mean 151,000 people tested. It's far less.
No. Because you have repeat tests done for quite a number of people. By the time somebody is declared COVID-free, they would have done about at least 3 rounds of testing. So this is doubled in some cases, triple testing for certain individuals. It doesn't mean 150,000 people have been tested. And this is the case around the world, right? It doesn't mean that for every test that you've expended, that there's an individual per test. One individual could have up to 4 or 5 tests. It was just interesting because I saw a statistic yesterday and we're doing a comparison between Kenya and South Africa of how that kind of testing went. South Africa have done 1.3 million tests and they've reported 106,000 cases. Kenya has done 151,000 tests and have reported 5,200 cases. South Africa has a population of 59 million. Kenya has a population of 53 million.
When did we get to 53?
We don't have 53.
We have 47 million.
No. From the latest census, the numbers that they were looking at were over 47.
We are 47 million.
So
No. Our census has told us
We haven't hit
47.
50. We haven't even hit 49.
Don't look at the others. Just listen to our census. We are 47 million.
Okay, use the 47 million.
If you take us to 50.
It's okay. Use the 47 million.
Yeah.
South Africa still has 1.3 million tests and have reported 106,000 cases. Kenya has done 151,000 tests and have reported 5,000 cases. Right? South Africa has a population of 59 million. Kenya has a population of 47 million. Right? So if we're going to use those numbers, just under 8 million less people. And rapid testing have been happening in South Africa, and just 1/10 of the number of those tested have resulted in positive cases.
This matter of resources being available for testing, it's a question of priorities, really. In my opinion, it is not a question of the actual availability of resources. It is priorities. If testing was a priority,
We'll be doing it.
we would be doing it. It is not a priority.
We're just using it like a dipstick.
It is, because
Just let's see indicatively how are we doing.
how do you have the sort of budget we have and money is being allocated for all sorts of things, and yet we are claiming that this is something that threatens not livelihood, it threatens the lives of the citizens of this country. Now, should that not be the one thing that takes some serious priority? If our speaking, should I say, very simplistically.
Yeah.
Yes.
True. We've gotten to that point where basically, yes, we are facing an existential threat
Yes.
as a country, but also we're looking and seeing this thing is in the community.
Yes, it is.
What impact is it having in the community? What are our indicators? People going seeking medical care, or people reporting that their kin have died, even at home, applying for burial permits.
Yes.
So you're looking at it and you see, all right, so yeah, it's here with us, but if we dedicated all our resources into this, we'll still end up where we still are. Would we have more deaths if we tested more?
You know, there is a very, very direct result, a very direct correlation between the numbers of those who test positive and the frequency and the prevalence, just the numbers of testing, just numbers. There's a very, very direct correlation. And it isn't just with COVID. It isn't just with COVID. You think of any disease. If you don't test widely, you cannot really know what the prevalence of that disease is within any community or even within the country. You cannot.
Yeah.
Now, the way I see it is that what seems to be hampering the government more than anything else is the government is accustomed to some of these things being funded for them. And so this helplessness, this state of perceived helplessness is necessary for them to maintain so that help can be forthcoming. Because as far back as God knows when, you're talking about the 90s, you're talking about the 80s, this blood donation services existed in this country. There were no scandals to speak of, and these massive shortages that you speak of did not really exist.
Yeah.
If it existed, it was immediately sorted out because there was blood elsewhere.
Yeah.
So, what am I saying? If such a service could be run efficiently, effectively, without funding, it means it was being done.
Yeah.
Funding comes along. Suddenly, this very straightforward thing cannot be done.
Becomes too difficult.
It's difficult.
You make a lot of sense. A lot of sense. It's basically priming ourselves for we need support. Once you guys are done, and then you start turning towards Africa, come here to us. I'll be like, you see, we have been trying. We have all the protocols in place. We have everything in place, but we just lack the capacity to roll it out. If you give us the money, we are ready to roll out tomorrow. Protocols are in place, which you can mark as WHO, and you find that we score 98%. Just give us the money, my friend, and you see. Then they give us the money, and they will see.
Or not see.
They will receive the gift of sight.
Wataona.
Wataona. Kama alikuwa hajaona.
Haya. Worldwide?
All right, so if you look at the numbers, having been recorded in the world, 9.5 million is what we're looking at now. So 9,527,123. The United States is inching closer to 2.5 million with 124,281 deaths. Brazil at 1.1 million. We still see the high numbers in Mexico very soon. I mean, from what we see, and if this continues and pointing indicators, there'll be well over 200,000 cases in the next 24 hours. 5,437 is the number of cases that they have recorded since yesterday evening, with 947 of those resulting in death. Again, just under 20% of these cases that they've realized in the last 7 hours have resulted in death, unfortunately. This is what we are looking at now. We look at the numbers being recorded in South Africa. Yes, 111,796 cases in South Africa. We know that their testing also is quite rigorous and vigorous. 2,205 deaths is what they have recorded. China, the numbers are dropping than where they were at 40, 50 new cases per day, now at 19 new cases per day, or rather 19 new cases over the last 7 hours. The South and Central American countries continue to record quite high numbers, 1,098 in Bolivia over the last 24 hours, 279 in Guatemala, 628 in Honduras, and some of those resulting in death. South Korea still is recording some cases as they go along. The numbers are a bit low, but they've not stopped recording cases in the last 8 weeks. Every day, they have recorded new cases, even after the measures were taken. And we know that they're one of the first countries to be hit hard by this.
Yep.
All right. The African continent, the North African countries still remain right around the numbers where they had been before. Egypt right up there with South Africa, but then Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco still right there, 6,000, 7,000 cases, and not moving quite high. Yep, so that's what it looks like around the world. Nothing new jumping out of us. New Zealand, even after the cases where they saw, still recording a few cases here and there. 3 more cases in the last 24 hours. So they're still not, again, COVID-free. Mm-hmm.
So now there are cases in the community.
Yes, they've gone back to community transmission.
Surely are those connected to the 2 women who had come in from the UK?
I think we need to look at that, but from the World Counter, apart from those 2 women now that took them back to previous status, they have recorded total in 6, and in the last 24 hours it has been 3. So we don't know if they're related to these 2. This couple of women or not.
Do they report the number of people they've tested?
They do, actually. They tell us the number of people they've tested
New Zealand
time, so we'll need to find that out and get those details.
I would assume that now they're basically doing targeted testing.
Yes.
Of the areas where they found, now they're doing targeted testing going forward. All right, let's go into a commercial break, a short break, and look at the weather. And at the same time, just to remind you that you can access today's Standard newspaper, because we'll be looking at the newspaper headlines shortly. You can read the Standard newspaper on your mobile device with 20 shillings worth of airtime on your phone. Just dial star 550 star 2 hash. This is on your Safaricom mobile. Star 550 star 2 hash. You will receive a message that tells you you're going to get an SMS shortly. When you open that SMS, it has a link. Click on the link. It asks you whether you want to read today's paper at 20 bob, or you want to subscribe for the rest of the week, or you want to subscribe for a month. And then you'll be reading the paper as you wish. If you want to win 1,000 shillings worth of free airtime this morning, tell us where this story is on the Standard newspaper today. On which page is this story? It's from Elgeyo Marakwet. A woman who killed her in-law has been arraigned in court. This is a 28-year-old woman who allegedly attacked and killed her sister-in-law over a cup of milk yesterday appeared before the High Court sitting in Eldoret. Beatrice Itiene, a mother of 4, is said to have attacked her sister-in-law, Miss Rotich, who is 20 years old, with a piece of wood on Sunday morning. She fled the home after the incident, but was later arrested by police with the help of the public. The suspect's parents said that she had been threatening her in-law on allegations that she dislikes her. That is the suspect's children. She says, you don't like my children. Mwewe, you don't like my children.
It usually goes beyond that.
Yeah, probably is a little bit more than...
It usually goes beyond
so
that.
The allegation is that there was an argument over a cup of milk, took a piece of wood, hit her, she died.
Well, a piece of wood are not... Well, they're not known to be very good agents for conflict resolution. We don't know what other pressures this lady had, Beatrice. And right now in this season, people have more pressures than they've probably known their entire lives.
Yep.
Because the world seems to have just been turned on its head.
Yep. So Beatrice has now been arraigned in court. And the headline to the story is Woman Who Killed Her In-Law Arraigned. On what page is this story on the Standard newspaper? 0719-012-600. You stand a chance of winning 1,000 shillings worth of free Safaricom airtime. Good morning.
24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, let's look at what Thursday morning has in store for us. In Nairobi, we see mostly cloudy conditions, highs of 23 and lows of 12. Those conditions will continue through most of the day. Nyeri at 14 degrees is mostly cloudy. It's going to be a wet afternoon with highs of 22 and lows of 13. It's clear skies in Nakuru at 13 degrees. That'll change later, though, as we go into rainy conditions with highs of 23. Eldoret this morning at 12 degrees. We'll have clear skies with a few clouds, and those clouds will beckon in the rain clouds later with highs of 21 and lows of 12. It's 18 degrees and partly cloudy in Kisumu, highs of 27 and lows of 18. Kakamega is partly cloudy at 15 degrees, highs of 25 and lows of 15 with showers promised for the afternoon. Malindi is experiencing light rain showers already at 25, and this will carry on through most of the day, highs of 28 and lows of 24. Mombasa is partly cloudy at 24 degrees and will go into an afternoon of rain with highs of 28. Let's take a look outside of Kenya now and into Kampala, where it's partly cloudy at 19 degrees and thunderstorms are forecasted for the afternoon with highs of 26 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam is clear at 23, clear skies and partly cloudy conditions throughout the day with highs of 30 and lows of 23. Johannesburg at 5 degrees, clear skies this morning, and we'll have sunny conditions through the day with highs of 16 and lows of 3. It's clear skies with a few clouds in Lagos at 26. That'll change later, going into rainy afternoon with highs of 29 and lows of 24. New York still on Wednesday night, clear skies, however, and it's a warm night at 26 degrees, going to highs of 30 and lows of 21. The summer months have established themselves in Europe. 12 will be the low in London today, but currently at 19 degrees and experience a high of 31. Paris at 21 degrees, clear skies and sunny conditions throughout the day, going into a very hot by European standards afternoon of 34 and lows of 21.
At 23 past 6, this is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. For a chance to win 1,000 shillings worth of free Safaricom airtime, just call in and tell us, on what page is this story in the Standard? Woman who killed her in-law arraigned. Woman who killed her in-law arraigned. This is from Elgeyo Marakwet County. She was arraigned at High Court in Eldoret. On what page is this story? 1,000 shillings worth of airtime could be yours this morning. Just remember, just remember you can read the Standard online on your mobile phone, rather, by dialing star 550 star 2 hash. That's star 550 star 2 hash. Shall we try the phone lines and then we go and pick and hear what Siti Muga has in store for us today as today's proverb? Today's proverb, Siti.
Today's proverb: if you pick one end of the stick, you also pick the other.
If you pick one end of the stick,
You also
pick the other.
Yes, this is an Ethiopian saying.
Okay, this one will need to be explained to. Aaron in Eldoret, good morning.
Good morning, fellas. How are you?
How are you two? We are fine. Ati, how are you two?
Fine too.
We are fine, Aaron. How are you? You're well?
I'm also good.
Very good. Now, you want to try answering this. In fact, you are calling from Eldoret. She was arraigned in High Court in Eldoret yesterday, the 28-year-old Beatrice Citiene. On what page is this story in the Standard newspaper?
It is found in page 11 in the Standard.
Okay, page 11.
Mm-hmm.
What is the headline again for the story?
The headline is woman who killed her in-law arraigned.
Well done, Aaron. Well done. Congratulations and thank you very much for doing this. Was it easy for you to be able to read the Standard on your mobile phone?
It was quite easy. In fact, I woke up and the first thing I got the Standard newspaper.
Great.
Yes, so it was very easy.
Asante sana. Stay on the line. Let's speak to our producer John. He'll take your details and you'll receive your 1,000 shillings worth of airtime.
Okay, have a good day, everyone.
You too, Aaron. Bye.
Thank you.
As we head to the other headlines in the newspapers, City, when you go to the top of the hour, you'll tell us a bit more about this. When you hold one end of the stick, you're also holding the other. Okay. So, what end of the stick do you want to hold, Madam Birthday Girl?
What end of the stick? I'll take the whole stick, man. Why are you giving me only half? The whole thing.
Take
Abi?
the whole stick.
Yeah. Can protect me. I can use it to beat you.
All right.
Many things. you know.
Headline, please.
Oh, I should stop.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, ticking time bomb is what we have on the front page of the Standard. The handshake and BBI have led to a new elite consensus, but political alliances in Kenya rarely last an election cycle or referendum. We look at the past and present to explain the storm ahead of Uhuru and Raila. So it seems that a soothsayer is playing here and saying that this is not going to last. Whatever it is that people are coming together to do is not going to last. They shook hands on the 9th of March 2018, and the Unity Pact led to the Building Bridges initiative. But if a historical experience is anything to go by, it seems that this will not last for very long. And it's not the first time that Kenya's rival elites had concluded a political pact to work together. Political pacts have been common among elites throughout the post-colonial period. Both Kenyatta and Odinga had concluded pacts before. Odinga made one with former President Mwai Kibaki following violence in 2007. Uhuru formed one alliance with a former rival, William Ruto, and won the 2013 election. The Uhuru-Raila handshake, however, was surprising because there was no open mediation taking place. Furthermore, events of the previous month show they were bitter with each other. They had continued to hold stubbornly to their positions until they then went into this agreement, or the handshake is what we know it to be.
So basically, just predicting that this is going to run its course at some point.
End up in flames.
So the story actually written by Professor Karuti Kanyinga. He's a research professor at the University of Nairobi. It says if key proposals are endorsed in the BBI referendum, or they get the support at Parliament, then this pact will collapse. That'll be it. Itafika mwisho, stage ya mwisho.
Very fast.
Yeah. As long as it have moved from here to stage ya mwisho, that's fine. We don't expect anything much from this kind of things. We'll be looking at what's happening in political parties, so let's skip this one. But we can just say, Ruto's Mount Kenya ally dumps Jubilee to form a new party.
And while we're on it, Trader beats Ruto allies to reserve the Jubilee as silly name.
Hey.
So I think there's a lot to talk about when we're looking at that political party issue.
Okay. Now, it'll be interesting to see whether this trader is allied to Ruto anyway. Because it's not that like Ruto was going to himself to the register of political parties and say, Mimi William Ruto, nataka no, we don't expect that. So something else to see what happens.
Yeah.
The hearings at County Hall on the impeachment of Governor Anne Waiguru concluded yesterday. Many witnesses produced by both sides. They came in to talk about what exactly is happening. There was a top official who came to defend the sacking of 400 workers. This is a senior county official who told the Senate committee investigating the impeachment that they had no option but to fire 400 striking workers. He's a country secretary, Joe Muriuki. He said the workers refused to resume duty even after the courts had outlawed their strike. So, look, through the chair, honorable senators, we had to fire them. Through the chair, there was no option.
What I find interesting, in this country, is there ever a time when strikes are considered lawful?
Hardly ever.
Right, that when someone will strike and the person who, or the number of people behind this would say, actually, you know what, it's all right. This striking, actually, we welcome it, and we're going to try and do everything to make you comfortable. No, not really.
Because the utterances of any, like with the formation of the counties, every time you've heard of some strike or the other within the counties, the first thing the executive declares that it is an illegal strike.
Actually, they go to court and the courts declare that this is an illegal strike.
I'm actually going beyond the courts. And I'm saying that what determines the legality? Did they not give sufficient notice of the strike?
And that's why I'm sticking with the courts. Because if the courts, and the courts usually, courts will always side with the employee. By the time the courts are saying, all right, so from what have been presented here, we say that this strike is illegal. You guys go back to work or follow procedure.
No, it's the industrial and what's that court called?
Industrial and Labour Court.
And Labour Relations Court.
Yes, that one tends to side.
And it's the one that usually declares these things.
If it
illegal.
declares it illegal, then one should take notice.
It's there's something that you skipped.
Something you didn't do.
You gave the 21-day notice, and then you've gone on strike, but then something else. Something else.
You didn't breathe 50 times. Yes, but you're right. There's usually some detail, perhaps, that you ignored or you overlooked.
It's a technicality.
It has to be a technicality.
It's not that this strike is morally illegal. It is. It is just a technical bit here and there. But they fired 400 workers, and this has been one of the issues here in contention, especially in the health sector.
Talking of that, you see, that matter that had bedeviled Kisumu for the longest time has been resolved. Yes.
Somebody decided to sit down and have a conversation.
Well, it is the courts again that said, you know something, Mr. Governor, I think these people do have a point. And not only are we reinstating them, but we're also asking you to promote, meaning this matter that has been with us for the longest time, you must resolve it.
Sort it out.
So the courts ruled in favor of the striking workers?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Yes.
Next
so
step.
The 3-week strike has been brought to a halt.
Have they called off the strike, the workers?
No, they haven't.
Okay. No, that's because that's the next stage.
When things are actually put in place.
The courts have ruled in your favor, then now we have to come and sit down and say, now that we've gotten the court's backing, can you tell us when you're going to promote us? Can you tell us when you're going to pay us? How much you're going to pay us? That whole conversation is yet to happen. I am not sure it's about to happen either way.
What the industrial court, however, did was they ordered the workers to go to work.
To resume to work.
On Friday.
Okay. Good. 28 minutes to 7 o'clock. Let's take a look at traffic. This conversation continues. Good morning.
morning, things seem to be moving a little bit slowly. Don't seem to have much of an issue today. Waiyaki Way, between Westlands and rather all the way from Waruku, then going down James Gishuru. Not much of an issue today. Looks like we're going to have a little bit of trouble a little bit later, but not now. Okay, unfortunately, there is a fire that had happened in Gikoban this morning once again, and that is causing a mess already in that general area. Coming off of Jogo Road, it's slow towards the City Stadium roundabouts, getting then into the CBD. Gikomba Market Fire continues to bring problems this morning, and quite a lot has been destroyed, and that means that there's a lot of activity in that area, and it's spilling over on both sides, going on towards towards Jogo Road. All right, Likoni Road is deplorable in terms of what the road looks like, and that makes movement a lot slower this morning, and it's affecting traffic in industrial area, and that's spilling also over onto Jogo Road. So it looks like Jogo Road is what we're going to be looking at this morning. Apart from that, nothing else seems to be popping out at us. A little bit of slow-moving traffic on Mombasa Road. We'll take a look at that in a short while. Spice of MKE, let us know what you see, and we'll be able to help to keep things moving this morning.
At 25 to 7, we are looking at interesting stories in the newspapers this morning. So yeah, we're expecting now the verdict of the committee to be delivered tomorrow at the floor of the Senate. The Senate committee last evening concluded impeachment hearings, and they promised to deliver justice to both parties.
Yeah.
It was a good promise.
There are those, of course, who believe fervently that this is a complete sham.
Yep.
And that the final decision in this case was long determined even before the case got to the floor of the Senate.
That the vote is already there. In
It's
fact,
true.
we can tell out of how many delegations? 47 delegations, 45. Or is it 43? Well, let's so Kipchumba will vote no. Aaron Cheriot will vote no. Well, we can count. Susan Kiheka will vote no. So let's say out of that we have 10. 37.
The question I want to ask is, what will they say should it not be what they have predicted?
Yeah.
They'll be pleasantly surprised. That's what they'll say.
Pleasantly surprised or unbelievably shocked.
They'll be like, are you serious?
This is what the
Like
case
for
is.
real. This is what happened. Ano Iguru herself, when she spoke yesterday now during the closing of the hearings, she said this has meant taking political decisions. I mean, she termed the charges unfounded against her and merely meant to malign her name for political expediency. Of course, you'd expect her to say nothing less. She says this is taking political decisions, including to support the president in his BBI initiative, which I believe is in the interest of Kirinyaga and all of Kenya. My stand has made me enemies with people of deep influence inside and outside my county. She's talking about some of these things that you guys have been brought here in these hearings. Case in point, you've heard evidence that there was no 50 million shillings contract paid to Velocity. Now we have to always say Velocity is CITY.
Which Velocity?
Yeah, you be sure of which velocity we're talking about.
Velocity company. Neither was there evidence of any invoice of 30 million shillings paid as passionately alleged by the MCA, is what she said. So the issue of Velocity and how you spell Velocity and how you pronounce the C in the Velocity.
Let me ask this question, Eric. Does she actually directly address the issues that were brought against her? I mean, condemning wholesale everything
To some
that has
extent,
been
yes.
said.
To some extent, in her reading, like now in this one, she's saying this was brought before you. There was no evidence adduced to support what they're saying. I have vehemently denied any wrongdoing here.
Okay, that is one. She wasn't accused of one thing, you know.
Yeah, a number. A number.
She
Because-
denied everything that was brought before her, that she was accused of.
Yes.
Basically, she's denied it all. She's denied everything.
I mean, I expected her to deny them.
Yeah.
You don't expect anything else.
No, not really.
Yeah.
I didn't expect sort of like say. You know,
Actually,
this
that one I did.
They do have a point there, but it wasn't quite that amount. It was slightly less.
It was interesting because in the
Yes.
submissions yesterday, I saw this and I thought to myself, this is interesting because there was one amount of 10 million shillings that was in question. And when she was giving her final submission, which she was allowed to do towards the end of the proceedings, she said, even this amount of 10 million, they were unable to prove 4.6 million. And then she went on to something else. The issue of the 5.4 million never really came up. And she said 4.6 million, they were unable to prove. So, I mean, anybody who wants to look at it then with a critical eye would have said, okay, there were some holes here. And they kind of got glossed over, hoping that with the whole fanfare and the very interesting adjectives that were used, that you would forget, a paltry 5.4 million here or 3.8,
As a certified layman, I assume that what I should have witnessed or heard were, say, her lawyers or herself coming up and addressing each and every accusation brought against her and saying, with this one, this is...
Forget it. This one...
With
no.
this one,
no.
like this.
We
With
did,
this one.
We did hear Kamodo Waiganjo saying yesterday as well that, you know what, if we had known that this issue was going to have been brought up, we would have brought an entire dossier of evidence here. But these things were brought up already after the fact. We did not know that you were going to ask about this. Had we known that you were going to ask about this particular issue or yet another particular issue, then we would have
Wait
brought
a
all the
moment.
evidence
So basically,
that you would
they're
have
accusing the
required.
prosecution of prosecuting a different case on the floor.
Yes, on the
No,
floor.
no.
What you guys said earlier, and
Is
then
not
the
what you're
stuff that
talking
you're
about
coming to
here.
ask
Sounds to me like a diversionary tactic.
What you're coming to ask here is different.
It's, Eric, it's like saying when you're going to war, you're saying, look, we know we only agreed you're going to use stones. Why are you guys using spears and bows and arrows? This is these people have declared war. What do you think or what did you expect?
The charges against UCT are 1, 2, 3, 4. You
Yes.
prepare your defense on the charges 1, 2, 3, 4. You go to court, and
And
then
they
there's
bring
charge
5,
7,
6, 7,
8,
and
9, 10.
8.
Know
You will
your
not have sufficient
enemy.
time.
She should have had some intelligence from that side. For heaven's sake, you're being brought before the Senate. And these people clearly do not like you. That's why they brought you to this august house. And then you actually bring as a defense, actually, they're not playing by the rules. The rules were, you're supposed to accuse us only of 5 things. And then now you have gone and accused us of 7. No, it's not. Hey, lame. Lame.
Not sufficient time to prepare the defense.
My
There are
friend.
procedures.
Bro, you have an issue on which your life depends. And then you, hey. Okay.
We'll wait to see what comes out of
You know what
this
it,
committee.
you know what it points to, Eric? It points to what people like Kipchumba Murkomen have been saying. It points to someone who knows that it doesn't really matter what you say. I don't really even need to prepare that
Shauriano.
much. This thing is predetermined.
Shauriano
It lends credence to that thinking.
Okay. It does in
Yes,
some way.
it does.
Also, it also points the other side as very rough players.
No. You want someone to be removed. Do you leave any stone unturned?
You bring all your entire arsenal, for crying out loud. You wouldn't do anything less.
But there are things they didn't say. There are many things they could have
They
said.
could have said.
Yes, but I'm sure they didn't say. They stuck to certain things that were pertinent only to the county.
If you're
of
taken to
Kirinyaga.
court today over the murder of one person named so-and-so, and then the prosecution, in the course of that hearing, starts talking about, there's also rape allegation here. You can't start defending yourself against
You were not ready for that. You
charges that
didn't
are
know.
not before court.
They
That
are
is what
trying
is
to
brought
establish
before
that
court.
you are a committed wrongdoer.
There's history.
Where there's history. So don't just take this one in isolation that this is what they have done.
It's across
This
board.
guy has been doing these things before.
So don't
In fact,
expect that he didn't do it now.
Beyond just killing, he's a pedophile. They are not leaving any stone unturned. Yes.
17 minutes to 7 o'clock. Let's take a quick break. We come out of this, we continue looking at headlines, and then we'll also be introducing our guest host for today, Ms. Cherotich Sei. She's an active citizen. She's here to join us in the conversations actively. Good morning.
As a citizen.
As a citizen. She's not an activist. She's an active citizen. Get the difference. Good morning. It's 6:45. This is the situation in Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's now introduce our guest today. Ms. Cherotich. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Eric.
Karibu sana Kirinyaga.
Spice up your life.
Almost 6 months about.
Has it been 6 months?
It's true.
Oh, no, we spoke. You called me, I think, 3 months ago.
Oh, yes.
But I was last physically here 6 months ago.
Welcome back.
BC.
Thank you.
Welcome back. In those 6 months, you can see CT has
Lost.
some hair.
Yeah, I would have walked straight past him.
I have gained some. Yeah.
I would have walked straight past you too.
And Nduoko has celebrated a birthday.
Oh, gee.
Happy
Today.
birthday. Oh, today. Happy birthday.
Why, thank
I will socially distantly hug you.
I will take. I will
Wish you
take.
many happy returns. Ah, that's lovely.
Welcome. So we'll be discussing a lot of things today, and also with you, we'll talk about social protection and the lessons that you've learned. The last time we spoke on the phone, you were giving us your experience of what you were doing, being able to mobilize resources from well-wishers and identifying people who need help and going out to assist them. You'll give us your lessons on that. We've been talking about social protection for the last 2 days, and people calling in and talking about their experiences. So having you here is going to be adding some oomph into this conversation.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And before we talk about that, we'll also get into politics, and we'll talk about other things as well.
Okay, for sure.
Like now, looking at what's interesting in the newspapers, Miss Birthday Girl,
We're going to go with this today.
it's not ending.
So, not just on politics, but schools opening are causing a headache for the CS. So we might need to throw a couple of pills his way. However, the proposal to have between 15 to 20 learners per class could be a tall order for already crowded institutions. They're facing a major challenge as the government of ensuring social distancing will be achieved among learners when schools open in September. With inadequate classrooms to accommodate the current high number of students in public schools, a proposal to have between 15 to 20 learners per class presents a serious challenge considering the already overcrowded institutions. Education CS George Magoha yesterday admitted that implementing this proposal will be a challenge and hinted that the government will rely on face masks for learners to lessen the impact. All right. I quote, "You know and I know and everybody knows that this is going to be a challenge. The more reason we must make sure that masks are made of the right material and that they are of good size for the learners. Everybody knows that social distancing is going to be a challenge, and this is why this needs to be done."
So, okay, it's obvious. We can't say it may be a challenge or it might be a challenge. It's obviously going to be a challenge. If you tell people that you're going to have 15 people per class, that is definitely going to be a challenge, obviously. But now let's flip the coin a bit. So the people who are going to make face masks for all these millions of people.
Yes.
How much per face mask?
I don't know how much they're going to charge.
What's the
but
application process? I can see.
Well, you
Retirement
already,
plan.
for you?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you know what this needs to happen is that it said that, so there are some centers around the country, Rivertex, of course, which has been visited, and he's also toured them and talked about the manufacturing of face masks. Their single tailors are currently producing 1,500 masks per shift. If we are looking at around the country, KCPE alone has 1 million students. That means that the government is committing to providing 2 masks per child. So they're looking at upwards. Well, okay, I don't even want to do the math because it's give me a headache right now. But
1 million times 2.
that's just for KCPE. That's just for those who are in Standard 8, right? So we're looking at all students in public schools across the country that they're going to provide this for 2 per mask.
Again.
Okay. They've already allocated 2.1 billion for the construction of additional classrooms in secondary schools and another 700 million towards the improvement of infrastructure in low-cost boarding schools and in arid and semi-arid areas. We've talked about 1.9 billion for the provision of 250,000 locally fabricated desks for secondary and primary school. So in terms of how much these masks are going to cost, we don't know, but they will avail thermal guns and sanitizers to schools in line with the laid down safety measures before learners are allowed to go back to school.
This is it's a big issue because you have to think about all those things. Like you said, you're talking about providing masks. You're talking about thinking of sanitization. So hand washing facilities.
Eric, those are straightforward things.
Provision of water.
Now you're getting to the heart of the matter. Provision of water, classrooms, sizes, the numbers that you require to accommodate the students that we have safely.
Yep. The teachers.
The 2.1 billion allocation, that falls in the realm of theory. Because when you say you've allocated that money for more classrooms, for how many institutions?
Right. What counties are we talking about? A mapping of national schools, and what numbers are we looking at?
And what space do they have?
Yes, the schools themselves.
Are they going to encroach on the limited playing fields that exist? And how quickly are they going to construct them? This is just outside the realms of reality. Even if you look at the elite private schools, you're looking at about 18 children on average, 15 to 18 per classroom. So even those schools would have to figure out how to take those 3 out and put them somewhere else, for example. So when the CS spoke the other day, I said, is he the Minister of Education in Norway? Because it did not sound like Kenya as far as I was concerned. Yeah.
It's going to be a challenge, I think, the issue of schools and trying to observe all these measures. But what are they doing in the other countries? Have they reduced the number of pupils, for example, in a classroom?
They're learning.
Where have they moved them? Are they learning in shifts?
They're learning in shifts. But you have countries these are countries that already have a very well-developed education infrastructure. So kids will learn in pods or come in shifts. So you will have children coming 2 days a week here, and then the others 2 days a week. And it's a very well thought through cycle, including transport. Because even if you wanted to do that in Kenya, how are kids getting to school? Sometimes siblings walk together. Haven't you come to work very early in the morning? Haven't you seen those tiny little children walking at 6 in the morning, 5 in the morning to school? So what will happen if one of their elder siblings is not on shift? We don't have developed transport systems for school children. And what do you do with the others who are at home for 2 days a week? What about those in boarding schools? Will you lock them? Will you sequester them in their dormitories? What are you this is just outside the realms of reality.
But even if you talk about the other countries that are working on shift and students are going to school on shift, so what are they doing? If they go for 2 days a week, what are they doing with the other 3 days of the week?
Homework, assignments. So so you work from home, and you're given certain tasks and activities, and of course there you're assuming that children have access to tablets, to laptops, to Wi-Fi, so then they can log onto Google Classroom, and they can do these types of things and even interact with their teachers or other students. As it is today, there's a 2-4% of children in Kenya who are still in school, because they're doing the remote teaching and learning.
Yep.
And so you have that infrastructure, assuming that parents have Wi-Fi, parents have laptops for the children, and children are able to then interact with the teachers and fellow students.
A part of that can be rolled out here, not on using technology, but on telling children that this is what we expect you to go. Don't come to school tomorrow. We do the homework, do the home learning, and then when you come the next day, we're going to have a discussion going forward. We must find ways of accommodating this. Because, look, we talked about this. The ministry has said we have to think about how to work in shifts. We cannot hire new teachers immediately and be able to cover the number of students we're talking about. We cannot talk about reducing the size of the number of pupils in a classroom and not have an impact. So we'll have to do a shift system. Yes, there'll be those logistical issues of, okay, so if the younger ones are going the older ones to school, what happens in those instances? We have to find a way of working around it, because we can't really say that school education is not going to resume. It has to resume at some point, and even when it does, even if it's April next year, there will have to be measures put in place. What are those measures then that we need to be put in place?
Well, I think that unfortunately right now what is happening is not what should be happening right now. If you're talking about that plan, that's the planning that should be done. Because as you think about it, just from the surface of it, it's going to be a logistical nightmare. So this is the time that should be used for actually planning out exactly how it's going to work out. There can't be a random statement today just off the top of somebody's head and say, okay, actually we should do this or shouldn't do the other. The moment you say something like that without an adequate plan in place, so many questions rise. So many questions come out and people are asking, okay, so, I mean, this is just something interesting. I didn't even think about it. That you have children who walk to school and the only way that their parents are able to send them to school is because the younger child is in the presence of the older one. Otherwise, and they themselves cannot take these children to school because they're off doing a job. Yeah. Thinking about that. And then if you're going to separate younger from older, how are these children going to get to school? They don't use the transport because they cannot afford it, or the school themselves don't offer it. So there's so many things to take into consideration. Rather than rushing to fill in a particular need because children have to go to school, this is the time that should be used to plan out and say, okay, this is what is required. Just the water alone. And don't just think that it's rural areas that don't have water in schools. Urban schools here have to buy water for their institutions. Things that we already look at today and ask ourselves, how exactly is it going to work? I watched my 4-year-old son yesterday with his mask, and I said, I'm just going to do this as a social experiment. And he put on his mask and he went to ride his bicycle. By the time he rode his bicycle and came back, the mask was off.
Just gone.
Mm-hmm.
So then I thought to myself, I said, okay, if he goes back to school and they're sitting in class, that I can understand because there's supervisory role of the teacher. Then they go for a break and come back. How many masks will this boy have gone through by the time the school day is over at 3:00?
Yeah.
How is it going to work?
If they lose a big thing like a sweater.
You go to school in the morning, you don't come back with a shoe. One shoe. A child can come back and they don't have a shoe.
What's a mask?
I'm trying to imagine what a mask is going
and
to
it's
be.
uniform.
And they're going to start sharing masks because, you'll get in trouble if you come back to class without a mask. Yeah. So you borrow from your friend. And because they're not quite cognizant of what it means in terms of the germs that you're accumulating behind your mask. But, this is perhaps indicative of the approaches that have been taken since COVID-19 was declared a pandemic and an emergency here in Kenya. It is wholesale adapting other systems and methods and thinking that they're going to work perfectly fine here. Whether it was the lockdown, whether it was curfew, whether it is social distancing, and now schools must resume 15:20. It's like our government takes a textbook from some other country somewhere and says this is how we're going to do it.
They're called protocols.
And
guidelines.
Guidelines and protocols, but you're supposed to adapt to them. You're supposed to adapt to them, and we're supposed to innovate. So I agree with you, Eric. Kids must go back to school, and they must learn. But can we innovate? Can we domesticate and adapt some of these guidelines and protocols so that they're within the realms of possibility?
Indeed, we must. We'll continue this conversation in the next hours, the 7 to 8 o'clock hour. What is it that we need to do in terms of looking at schooling and education and reopening of schools, getting new desks, fabricated locally, 600 million shillings earmarked for that. The budget has not been passed, so forget about that 600 million until December, okay? And the rest. CT, today's proverb again. And this one, listen, it's a very interesting
If you pick one end of the stick, you will also pick the other.
Explain.
Let me explain by giving you an example. If you want to marry a woman who has children, you are marrying that woman and her children.
Yep.
Meaning, when you make a decision such as the ones that our government are, should we say, typify, those decisions will come with consequences. So it's not just the decision you've made, and then you sit back and say, well, we've allocated 2.1 billion. No. There'll be consequences for such a statement because you're going to be asked to break it down and to explain how exactly you want to divide this 2.1 between 47 counties. And then you're going to be told, having taken the counties, tell us exactly what it's supposed to do when you know very well that counties differ in the number of schools that they have. So what exactly do you expect them to do?
I get it now.
In short, many, many questions will follow.
I get it.
Yes.
Thank you very much. It's coming up to 7 o'clock. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation.
All right, so let's take a look at traffic this morning. How it looks like around about 7. The Gikomba fires that are taking place are really causing a lot of problems around that area. A lot of traffic has spilled over onto the side of Jogo Road, and it's quite slow all the way from Hamza, leading then towards the City Stadium roundabout, moving very, very slow this morning, and asking to drive safely and carefully as much as possible. All right, we'll take a look at Mombasa Road as well, coming from Cabanas and heading towards the General Motors. It's a little bit slow, but you'll be fine. Udhiri Junction on Wayaki Way all the way down towards the 87 and then towards Red Hill bypass, which you can use as an option, by the way. It's moving very slowly this morning for some reason. We don't know why. If there's something that's holding up, we'll find out and let you know. But if you're going in that direction, please understand that it'll take you a minute to get out of it. Ngong Road, Thika Road, and Langata Road look good for now. We're going to take a look at Thika Road later. Spice FM KE, let us know what you see and we'll spread the word.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room,
Mombasa,
we have
89,
CT
102.5 in
Muga,
Kisumu,
researcher,
96.4 in
academic,
Nakuru,
seasoned
96.7
political
in Eldoret,
observer, a
in
fountain
Nyeri,
of wisdom in these
90.9,
politically
and
uncertain
Malindi,
times.
97.7
Lou Oko,
criticism,
Nigerian by
Bill
birth,
in
Kenyan by
Malindi,
choice,
but our
communications
engineer
expert,
that in the room
Pan-Africanist, a
this
truth
morning,
seeker
we're
and
joined by our
believer
guest
in
host,
people
Charity
power,
Say, active
and
citizen,
Eric
who is,
Latin,
very active.
agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned
It's good to have you.
journalist,
As we're going
newshound,
into
a
the
man
topic
who
of the hour,
believes
we're
in
talking
punching
about
up,
the measures
not
that the
down.
Education Ministry is putting in
This
place
is
in
the
preparation
Situation
for the
Room,
reopening of
the
schools.
only way to start
We
your
had this
day.
conversation just earlier this week, and we were talking about, well, we need to have clarity of information from the Education Ministry. In fact, this whole issue of are schools going to reopen in September or not, it should not be in the air anymore. It should be work with us or help us work with you, right, as a ministry. Tell us, we could reopen schools in September if we get this and this and this and the other. If we get to a certain point, if we meet this kind of threshold, or if we don't, we push to next year. And then this is the impact of that. This is what we need to do. All these things that they keep talking about. Now we see the CS is going to inspect companies that make face masks. And the CS himself is going to inspect these companies, going to Kitui, going all the way to Eldoret. It's like we're focusing more on the commercial side of things.
Unfortunately.
And talking about, okay, we're also going... So when you start talking about the fabrication of desks, he'll be going to inspect again the prisons and everybody else who can make desks.
But remember, Eric, he had actually visited schools right around the country to look, well, ostensibly to look at or to determine the capacities that they had.
True. Actually, even when he's going to Kitui, he's not just going to
Yes.
the textile company. He's also visiting the schools and having a conversation with the officials.
Your point, though, is valid
That
because the entire subject of safety and precaution cannot rest with face masks.
No, it really can't.
You're right.
Because there's so many other things that are involved in this. There's so many other things that are involved. You're looking at the transport. You're looking at then what is happening when they're in school. So are we going to say that, because just look at the school day, for example. They get to school, they're learning in the morning, then they take a break. So these breaks will not be taken. So many things have to happen. When they're out playing, then what happens there? Because likely that they'll be mixing with themselves when they're playing. They come back into class. Oh, this is what I'm talking about should be the plan. The transport. When children are going back to school is the time in any country where you have the highest movement of population in the country when children are going back to school.
Remember, the issue of transport, though, matters more significantly in urban areas. In the rural areas, where a very huge chunk of our
They walk to
population
school, yeah.
run to school.
Yep.
Okay,
Or
Yep.
school you run to.
okay, sorry.
You don't walk. You may walk in the evening when you're coming back, but
in the
morning,
morning you must run.
You run.
Yes.
You run.
Yes.
But I'm talking about at the start of the term, because you have people transversing the country going to school. It's at
Yes,
that
you
time
do.
you have the single most highest movement of population in that. How is it going to work? Okay, we're talking about movement every morning using school buses and such. How is that going to work? Will it be like the Matatu sector, for example, where you said it will carry only half the capacity? So are you asking schools to buy or procure more buses? Are you saying that because of the shift system, then only a certain number of children will be going to school? All of these things, in my view, is what needs to be is what should be focused on now. The masks, sure, okay, we can think about that. But is it pertinent when it comes to how this is going to work?
I don't think it is that difficult to organize all this. Not really. These things get complicated when they're politicized. People who work in the education sector, the vast majority of these people know exactly what needs to be done. It's not that they don't know.
They do.
They are trained. They've been at this thing long enough. They can even project, and they will tell you this is. Think, for instance, when the moment schools were closed, how do you think this issue of curriculum development? Look at the speed with which that particular institution that is charged with curriculum development in the country. Look at the speed with which they worked. As they say in Kiswahili, punde si punde.
Yep.
Before punde had time to become punde, they had come up
Already.
with something that was workable.
They're basically just continuing with what they were doing before.
This is
All
something
did
they know.
Is they changed the program. They said, all right, so now
This is
instead
what
of just doing 2 hours a day, we are doing 8 hours a day. So
Yes.
what do? Let's fill up the hours. It was already there. I like what you've said, that the officers at the Ministry of Education and in the entire education hierarchy, they know. They have done this thing for many years. They have studied education. They deal with the children.
They know.
They know what needs to be done. And the same way we are sitting here and asking ourselves, so what is it? The things that we need to focus on: water provision, physical distancing, playing, and how the children behave when they're playing. They know all these things.
They do.
I think, and this is not about the politics, I think it's when the commercial interests come in. Because every focus is going to be shifted into how are we going to
make a little coin out of this?
How do we make money here? What is it that we need to do? We need to say that we need, to increase the number of desks. And then this is how we're going to get the desks. We need to talk about increasing the capacity of the schools and building classrooms and earmark money for building classrooms, knowing full well that by the time you have these classrooms, a vaccine will have already arrived in Kenya, or we'll have developed a vaccine here locally.
Or we will all have died.
Or we'll all have died. It's possible, right? So it's the commercial interest that comes sometimes to spoil what the seriously hardworking people at the ministry may be trying to do.
One of the things I've heard from friends and people who know those who work within ministries at middle level, the technocrats who are busy working hard. You're absolutely right, Eric. They know what they're doing and they know what needs to be done. The thing is that they're frustrated quite regularly. And in my opinion, when you look at what happened with the ruling on SGR last week, if you look at every single ministry, if you look at why there was the attempt to impeach Macharia, if you look at energy, if you look at health, every single ministry, the most abused act is public procurement. And so these commercial interests that you're talking about 100% hit the nail on the head, because it becomes about how much money can we make. And without an Auditor General in place, despite the fact that now a name has been presented for signing off, it'll be 2, 3, 4 years before we understand what happened to these monies. And then we shall shake our heads, we shall send a few angry tweets, we shall condemn a few people, we might even try and impeach people in future and say that they stole here and there, but that's it. So it is the commercial interests, and it is a procurement where the tenderpreneurs kick in every single ministry. There's money to be made from disasters and development. There's always money to be made.
It's an opportunity to become a billionaire.
Absolutely.
Yes, and there's an opportunity for the arms of security to actually exercise their might and actually carry the mandate that they actually have. And why do I mention politics? I mean, you're absolutely right. You're right. Eric, you're spot on. Politics, in the absence of politics, these things are not possible.
True.
If there's political will to put a halt to it, it will halt. The political will has, at the best of times, been limping.
At the best of times?
It's been limping. On such matters, it's been limping because we talk about it, and just when you think it really cannot get worse, it does. Something else comes up and you're saying, God Almighty. And right before our very eyes. So, did you think, for instance, that some of the donation that we had received would just sort of like do the sort of things that such things tend to do in this country? One moment you have a donation, the next moment there's silence. When you ask, silence, then suddenly they were taken.
Disappeared.
They disappeared. They can't disappear. Somebody must have taken them. So,
and somebody knows who that somebody
yes,
is.
they do. They do.
Yeah.
Then the next moment you hear the government wants to buy the same things, you feel, no, something isn't quite right here. And we have this problem that is real. Some of the things that are intended to help alleviate these problems, and you're thinking, goodness gracious me, what immoral depths did we sink to? And somebody somewhere is smiling and saying, what's this person talking about? Immoral depths. It's money to be made here.
10 million shillings richer than I was 3 months ago. What's wrong with you?
Where's the morality in these things? It's money. Now, political will comes in.
Are you saying that people would not have died had I not stolen?
I am actually saying...
Were people dying even before I stole?
Actually, I am actually saying, Eric, that what such a person should be charged with is crimes against humanity.
I agree.
Because you actually are causing the deaths of very many people.
And
knowingly and willfully.
Yes.
And there should never be a statute of limitations on prosecution. You should be able to tell somebody, even here when you say, as Eric was saying, well, aren't people dying anyway? If we find you 5 years later, 10 years later, 2 years later, 3 months later,
15
you will
years
still
later.
be held. There is no limit as to the time that we can come after you. And if there was a little bit more accountability, and perhaps this is part of the irritation around the governor of Kirinyaga, because for me, I'm not even interested in whether she was guilty in Kirinyaga or not. I still want to know what happened to NYS money. I still want to know what happened in the devolution ministry. So long as people know they can keep shelving what they did, put it in the past, put it behind them, and keep moving on to the next scandal, they will keep stealing.
Absolutely.
If people knew there was personal liability, even if you say, I don't have that billion shillings, we shall take the 20 million you have, all of it.
And if you can give us something as we keep going.
Correct.
Yeah.
And if
Plus
you're
a kidney.
and if you're a politician, then the rules of lustration kick in, where you shall never be eligible to stand for any kind of public office for the rest of your life.
Yep.
So you there's restitution, and there's also justice. And we want our money, because these are our monies. Even the COVID 57 billion stimulus package, whose money is that? If it's
our
loans,
money.
it's our money,
Yep.
because we are paying it back. If it's taken, if you have robbed Peter to pay Paul and reallocated and realigned budgets, it's our money.
It's
our
all
money.
our money. When we
Yes.
talk about all these things, it's like, the government has been so generous and it's given us 53.7 billion shillings economic stimulus package.
Where does the government get its money from?
Because it's a very thoughtful government, this one. It's very well thought out. 600,000 shillings to procure. How many is it? 600,000 desks or 600,000 shillings for desks?
It's 250,000 desks.
Okay, there you go. 600 million to do this. And you're still asking yourself, so practically, how is this going to work? How is this going to be rolled out? It's still our money, but this is a scheme to steal that money. When you see people working so hard and trying to think of coming up with a program, we have children that are at home that will need to go back to school. We have children that are undergoing pressure, because this is a pressure. This is not what children should do. Children are not able to play at home, because we're talking about physical distancing. You don't live in the same house, so don't go and play with the children from that house. So children are not playing. Children are not learning. There's pressure socially for these children, psychologically. And then there's pressure. And the teachers know this. They know we need to bring these children back to what they should be doing at their age. People who are working hard at this, but behind the scenes, there's somebody who's thinking how best to frustrate this. I can advise the CES today, let's form a committee, bring in the stakeholders, let them work around, let's sit in that committee and work together with the stakeholders on the modalities for reopening of schools. Report is presented to the CS, we haven't heard about it. Well, this CS is known for never releasing any report since he joined this ministry. How many
So
reports
that
are
one that I
pending?
was chasing for October 31st, they're not going to tell us.
October 31st. Forget it.
Okay.
We have
Why didn't you tell me?
October 31st was for what?
That was
Precious
the one
talent.
for looking at that was now for looking at the infrastructure of schools around the country, and those then which were not fit then to serve learners.
That was
We're waiting
after
for-
Precious Talent.
That was after Precious Talent, yes.
And then there were others. And they went and closed schools and said, we are now auditing all our schools. We'll release a report.
The report that covered schools like Precious Talent had been issued 5 years prior.
Yes, it was in
Yes.
2014.
Okay. And what was done?
Nothing was
Nothing.
done.
Yeah, so
Now this committee that was formed of stakeholders, they presented a report to the CS. He received it, shelved it. What we are seeing is him going around the country, inspecting schools and inspecting the Kitui Textile Company and Rivertex and,
And
others,
Rivertex.
and talking about face masks. And
Yeah.
maybe we need to hire more teachers. I'm
this
thinking we
isn't a
need to do
maybe
this and the other.
situation.
We probably may need to think about pushing the exams to April next year. Also a possibility could be that we just wipe out this year and say, everybody forget 2020. When you reopen in 2021, where you were in 2020, that's where you shall resume.
Now that's what you call a political
There's
statement.
a possibility as well that schools may not reopen in September.
September. April maybe. Next year.
We need to de-densify the classrooms. So we may have to think of how to have 15 people in a class. That's a headache. We're still having those conversations, not solid conversations. I still go back to that point of the education ministry should be telling people openly,
Giving us clear direction.
this is what we want to do. These are our KPIs. And these are our indicators. If we hit 40% of our indicators, we can move to the next stage. If we hit 60%, we can definitely move to the next stage. 0, we don't know what they're working at.
If there's one thing that COVID has done very successfully, is to clearly show us the naked underbelly of, whether whichever arm of government you think of, you will find that if you shine a spotlight on it, you will see things you perhaps would rather not see.
You don't want to see.
No.
Very many things that you really do not want to see are what is going to be.
And think about this. Huh? We talk about schools, forgetting that there are schools, even as we speak, that were turned into refugee centers.
And quarantine centers.
Yes. And we forget also that there were schools which were utterly destroyed, either by the floods or mudslides or what have you.
Yes.
And we also forget that there are schools that existed by name, but in terms of facilities that were required for the learners to actually undertake they were absolutely lacking.
Mm-hmm.
These are things that had not been sorted out. No one is speaking about sorting these things out.
You're talking about reducing the pressure in every classroom.
And then you're talking about face masks.
Actually, how many schools have been closed before the opening of the first term? So
the
students
number
have
of
been
schools that were
moved from
closed-
certain schools and taken to other schools, thereby congesting those schools.
Yeah.
And now you're talking about it, reducing the numbers. That's why I told you, it's not going to be maybe a headache. It's
already
an
a headache.
impossibility to have 15 pupils in a classroom in the Republic of Kenya.
By the way, the thing you need to ask yourself,
Impossible.
have you seen the sizes of some of these classrooms, first of all?
60, 70 students.
You're
That's what
supposed to
talking
actually
about.
have a certain standard size of a classroom,
in
as
terms
in the
of
structure.
square feet.
Some
Square
of
feet.
them are not quite the size that you think.
Let's take a break. 19 minutes after 7. Let's take a look at the weather and then come back and continue this conversation. We'll ask you to join in at some point. 0719 012 600.
All right, the sun seems to be peeking through some parts of Nairobi. It's, however, still mostly cloudy at 13. We'll see highs of 23 and lows of 12 today. Nyeri will be a wet afternoon with highs of 22, currently 14 degrees and mostly cloudy. Nakuru, clear skies and sunny conditions until about, this afternoon, where the rain will come down with highs of 23. Eldoret is mostly sunny at 13 degrees. Thunderstorms forecasted for the afternoon with highs of 21 and lows of 12. All right, let's take a look into Kisumu, where it's partly cloudy at 18 degrees. Highs of 27 and lows of 18 with showers forecasted for the afternoon. 16 degrees in Kakamega and partly cloudy. Highs of 25 and lows of 15 with showers expected in the afternoon. Malindi at 25 degrees is partly cloudy, mostly cloudy actually. Will turn into rain showers later with highs of 27 and lows of 24. Mombasa is partly cloudy at 24 degrees. Light rain showers being experienced through most parts of the town, and this will go into heavier rains for most parts of the day well into Friday. All right, let's take a look into Kampala, where it's partly cloudy at 19 degrees. We'll see highs of 25 with showers in the afternoon. Dar es Salaam is partly cloudy this morning as well. Those conditions will carry on through the day with highs of 30 and lows of 23. In Joburg, it's quite chilly this morning. Clear skies, however, at 4 degrees. We'll see highs of 17 and lows of 3. And we'll wrap things up in Lagos for now, where clear skies give off temperatures of 26 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 24.
At 21 minutes after 7, the Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It continues. In the room is CT Muga Nduoko, Eric Latif, and our guest host for today is Cherotich Sei. Her Twitter handle is Cherotich with a J. Cherotich Sei, Sei. You can follow her on Twitter. Her Twitter profile says, "More than a little fed up, doing something about it. Justice for Kenya." You're just more than a little fed up, right?
I really am.
It has reached you here and then it passed.
Yes.
It went.
Yes.
So you're all immersed in this nonsense.
In fed upness.
In fed upness. We're talking about education and reopening of the economy. Ndu, when is the deadline given by the think tank, the brain trust given?
Oh, looking at July 6th is what is supposed to happen, whereby, the next 21, well, the current 21 days would have lapsed. And, there was the extension after the first.
Extension, yes, by 30 days.
Yes, 30 days, yeah. So the extension, the second extension now is what we are currently abiding in. And there's a lot of speak. There's a lot of, okay, what's going to happen thereafter? But I'm telling you that before the conversation was, all right, let's wait and see what COVID is going to offer. But now I think with what we've seen is at this time where the most number of tests are happening in the country, the highest numbers of cases are being experienced and being recorded in the country. However, we still have the highest number of Kenyans suffering, and they're not able to eat, not able to work, not able to get any kind of income. And the calls have been, and clearly so, that it's time for these doors to open up and let people go back to work. People cannot eat. People cannot provide for their families. People are begging for sustenance. And the only way to do this is to be able to go back to work. In the CBD, and let's just take Nairobi as a snapshot, for example. In the CBD, just along Moi Avenue, as an example, there are shops which would normally be in operation. But what is happening now? People are standing outside of these shops begging passersby to just come in and see what they have. Even if they come in, people don't have the power to spend because people don't have anything in their hands. That is the reality.
And if they do, they are not spending it.
If they do, they're holding on to it because they don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, or they're holding on to it because they need to eat today.
So, come the 6th, if the president says, let's reopen, what's going to change? What's going to be different? Because as I hear you say, that shop is open, there are passerbys, so there are people. So it's not about calling on the reopening of this economy. I keep holding that opinion that we have not closed. We, Kenya, Tanzania, same WhatsApp group. We have not closed. It's just that for international PR purposes, we have all these protocols in place and we have all these measures and all these pronouncements. We are the same.
What's your definition of closed versus open?
Closed is Rwanda. Closed is stay indoors. Closed is do not open your shop unless you're running a supermarket or a market. Actually, closed is China. Don't leave your door. Don't even go to the balcony.
You need food, we'll bring it to you.
Well, it has stayed open then. I agree with your understanding of closed. We have stayed open, but people's wallets are closed now. And I think for me, the damage is already done. And this is what I had referred to earlier on about seeing protocols and then just imposing them on people without understanding the ripple effects. And in my opinion, the second we say there's curfew and there's lockdown and we closed off Kilifi, Kwale, Mombasa, Nairobi, and we shut the whole country down by 7 p.m. and now 9 p.m., even if on the 6th of July we are told, go ye therefore and live your lives, we are in such trouble. And I believe ultimately that we are in the middle of a complex emergency. And I talk about that quite often. I say, the economy was already tanking. Even before COVID hit us, we were already in a bad situation as Kenyans. Our purchasing power had gone down. Our defaulting on loans and all kinds of things had increased. We could not afford rent. We could not afford school fees. We were struggling. Hospital bills. Everybody was exactly one paycheck away from poverty. And then you bring COVID and the measures that the government put in place. In fact, in May and early June, I said if the president doesn't reopen us by the 6th of June, I think it's high time we moved into State House because that's the only place that seems to have an abundance of food and drink and water and everything that you require. So in this complex emergency, we've had on top of our declining terms this pandemic. And the fact that now, even though the economy is not closed, we have been unable as Kenyans to earn a living. So that whether it's somebody who earned 15,000 shillings a month or 50,000 shillings a month or 200,000 shillings a month, and you find yourself laid off or on 50% or 25%, the damage is done. 3 months down the road, 4 months down the road, we have no more money. We are all stuck. And in fact, the poverty is widening and deepening. It's not just the usual suspects that you think are sitting in Kariobangi or Korogocho or Kibra or wherever. We always think them and us. We always think, oh, thank God I'm okay. But if you were to dig a little bit deep, middle class or the so-called middle class, because I do not think there's a middle class in Kenya. You have the very poor and the very rich, and people in between thinking that they're I don't know, suspended somewhere in disbelief. Salaried people. But the salaried people who have now lost their jobs. Look at KQ staffers, for example.
Yep.
Look at those who've been laid off. You know, we are
hotels in
the hospitality industry. People are in deep trouble.
So what are you calling for? Removal of even this few restrictive measures that we have?
You see,
that's a conversation here. It's when the president was coming to speak to us on the 6th of June, he said, all right, there are all these measures that we put in place. Immediately we announced that we have a first case. We went into some sort of restrictions. Reduce movement, he called it cessation of movement, like you're saying, closing off these counties. Went to a point where we even closed off Isli and closed off Old Town in Mombasa and said, let's bring in the curfew. Let's reduce the number of times where people are interacting or coming together. And we know what happens at night. What are these businesses that are usually operative at night? It's the entertainment industry. And what happens in the entertainment industry at night, people are highly likely to throw away caution to the wind and interact a lot more and then go back home, and they could spread COVID to their family members. So the think tank was saying, let's not remove these measures yet until we have something in place. But the conversation the president was saying at that point is, I understand what it's doing to our economy. I understand what's happening. Are you saying, Chero, that come the 6th of July, the president should say, you know what, think tank, kachini, everybody, let's leave?
You know, he was already alluding to that during his last speech on the 6th of June, where he's getting to the point where, like Pontius Pilate, he's going to wash his hands off Wakenya. But my whole argument from the beginning was, what was the plan? When you say curfew and lockdown, what was the plan to cushion, to provide an effective safety net for the Kenyans that you expect to be locked down? That is my thing. You don't wake up 3 months down the road and say, hiya, we made a mistake. Now you just go back to your usual daily activities and God be with you. And if you get sick, shauri zenu, and you'll be buried within 24 hours if you happen to die. If you inconvenience yourselves and your families by dying, you shall be buried very quickly. Otherwise, it's all up to you. It's this gaslighting of saying, okay, we will reopen, but shauri zenu, you're indisciplined. What about those who met at Atwoli's with no sanctions? I hear that to go in and out of Isli was 100 bob. I was in Korogocho and I went to visit one mama who was not there for the day. She had gone to work. I said, Amenda kazini wapi? They said, Isli. I said, but Isli is locked down. She said, no, that's 100 bob. You pay 100 bob, you go in. 200 bob, those sides of Sijui where Limuru you can cross. People are all over the country.
People are moving.
Yes, so these sanctions have not actually been applied evenly and equally across the board.
So do you think the experts then are living in their own book world?
I think
because this is what the president said. He says, according to the experts who are standing behind me, relaxing the interventions by 20% would lead to 200,000 infections and 30,000 deaths by December.
How does he know? We are not testing enough. If we are now at over 5,000...
The experts.
Oh, well, the experts, with due respect to the experts. And by the way, I don't get into the public health or biomedical debates because there are enough experts who have their guns trained on me and who'd say, I don't know what I'm talking about. So I talk about what I know, which is the social aspect, the social aspects of this pandemic and what ought to have happened. People cannot social distance if you're 6 people in 2 rooms or 8 people in 1 room. People cannot social distance if you have to walk on the streets all the way to work at 20 kilometers away or 5 kilometers or 10 kilometers. People are not socially distancing in supermarkets. People are not socially distancing in political gatherings. KICC the other day, how many MPs were there? And were told no more than 15.
They were tripping over each other.
They were tripping over each other. There was no social distance. Look at the photo opportunity on the steps. If
only the photo op. Just the photo.
No, but what about the party at Atwoli's? And then you politicize you politicize and weaponize social distancing and COVID restrictions to suit your political purposes. But for me, and where I come in when you call me an active citizen and my work on social safety nets has been what type of planning and resources were made available to cushion those who would be most impacted by COVID shutdown. Well, we say we're not closed, but the shutdown, the curfews, the restrictions. Exactly. What was put in place? What type of support? We tried food. There were stampedes in Kibra and people died. Cash. We still talk about cash. We don't know how much money has gone out to the families. We had existing programs, the Inua Jamii and a couple of others, which were already in arrears.
Yeah.
When the president was releasing funds, he was talking about, oh yes, and there was 250 million, or was it 500 million? I say, where were those monies before? And then you have the Kenya COVID fund, which has God knows how much now, in
3
excess
billion.
of
3.7 billion.
3.7 billion, and we do not know how they're spending their money.
Okay, Cheryl, can I just on this issue, because we spoke about it yesterday, and then I think, and the day before, and it would seem that, tax experts would say that CT and I were being a bit simplistic when it came to then how this money would be spent. But for me, it makes sense in this manner that the conversations that we're having are real. This is a real situation of Kenyans who, because like you said, when the first case was found, it was the middle of the month, right? And if we're just being very serious, people who are even earning 5,000 shillings a month were looking forward to maybe earning that 5,000 shillings in a few days. They earned this money, and then they perhaps lost a job. So maybe they were able to sustain themselves through the month of April. Come the end of April, there was nothing. Come May, there's nothing. Come June, again, there is nothing. So these are people who are not looking for dreams to build castles in the sky. They're looking for food to eat. So when you're talking about a fund that you've put in place, 500 million here, 3.7 billion here, don't tell us about a stimulus package and how it's going to be wonderful because we're going to be able to pay. Send people money.
Yes, cash works.
3.7 billion
works.
shillings that you have sitting in a fund somewhere, and then you're telling us that the first port of call is to buy PPEs. Does not make sense to me. People don't have money, and it is the same people that you expect to rule over and govern.
Ndu.
It is the same people that you expect to lead.
I hear
Feed
you.
them.
Happy birthday, Ndu. Relax.
Feed them.
Breathe in, breathe out, then tell us what's happening on the roads. Okay, are you ready for that? Can you do that?
You want me to relax? There's an
Yeah,
issue here.
just calm down. Just calm down. Just calm down.
All right, Thika Road moving very, very well this morning. No problems at all. Slight traffic here and there, right around Muthaiga and then onwards, but you'll be fine moving away from that. Jogo Road is still a problem. We understand that the fires in Gikomba are still being put out right now. The cause of this not yet known, but it seems to be an annual event. And this is happening as we speak. Still trying to put that out, and we do have some heightened traffic on the road just because of this. Mombasa Road, the usual areas that we see issues on, that's what we're focusing on today, as well as in Westlands, coming off of the 87 and then down towards the Westlands roundabout. This is where we have a problem, but it's not too bad. Thursday morning is not too bad as concerns traffic. Spice of MKE on Twitter. That's how you can reach us. Let us know what you see so we can keep it moving as best we can.
Of June 2020, about 19 days since the province of another 30 days of the measures in place, as the experts have advised, and they say, look, if we remove the restrictions that we have, good as they seem, and however well they're working, if we remove them, we'll have a huge impact in terms of our fight against COVID-19. But at the same time, the people who are alive in this country are saying, if we continue treating this thing normally, it is treating us seriously abnormally. It is continuing to treat us abnormally. So the conversation that we're having this hour is, What is it that we should expect our experts to advise the president come the 6th of June at the end of the 30 days? Should we have a forced reopening of our economy and then say, okay, what happens about schools, about the other sectors of the economy, or even churches and religious organizations where you have gatherings or political gatherings, like we say? Should we have a forced reopening? That's this hour. We segue into the issue of social protection and what is it that we are doing, the issue of the COVID fund, what active citizens like Chero are doing to help our brothers and sisters, what all of us are doing to help our relatives who may not be doing as well as we are. You know, we consider ourselves lucky because at least you have some sort of an income. What is it we should be doing? So the question I'm asking each one of you this morning, and I remember I kept pushing you, Chero, is, are you saying that we should have a reopening of this economy? Remove these restrictions?
I am saying we should listen to the experts and agree with the experts on condition that the social safety nets are in place. If you want to lock people down for 1 year, make sure they have services. Make sure they have money to pay their rent. Make sure they're able to buy food. I was looking at the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics report. It was not a very long report. I would encourage everyone to look at it. It came out on the 15th of May, where they were even talking, when Du is talking about students going back to school, 51.7% increase in transport costs. Why? Because if you're 6 or 8 in a matatu instead of 12 or 13, then the cost has to go up.
Yep.
By April, about 30.5% were unable to pay their rent on time. And I'm sure this is June. Now you actually probably are at 40, 50, 60% just not being able to pay their rent. The distress calls that I receive or messages that I receive from people just say, we're not even picking calls from our landlord because we have nothing to tell them. Others have been locked out of their houses. This is month number 2 now. When you look at families that had pre-existing medical conditions, about 17% of those surveyed, so we have not even, Kenya National Bureau of Statistics has not gone across the country. They have just surveyed a sample. Things are very serious. So if you want us to stay locked down, provide us the services. And I want to use an example that a friend of mine was sharing with me, a friend of mine in the diaspora, and reminded me of what type of inequality exists in Brazil. We know Brazil and its massive population. But Brazil, back in 2003, 2004, introduced a form of basic income, universal basic income. Not universal, but basic for the most vulnerable in society. You could argue that Inua Jamii and so on may be speaking to that. But on the 19th of March this year, when the country realized, and civil society especially realized, that this COVID issue was going to be a huge thing, 160 civil society organizations, 500,000 citizens, and about 3,000 social media influencers came together and made a very serious public push for the expansion of this, emergency benefit, unconditional emergency benefit, so that at least as of today, now, we can argue about all kinds of other things in Brazil, but as of today, at least 1/3 to almost a half of the population receives up to two individuals per household. They receive 10,000 shillings per individual per month, equivalent to 10,000 shillings, maybe 11,000 shillings. So if there's me and you in a household, Eric, and we're both over the age of 18, whether or not we are spouses or we have the same children, we will each receive like 11,000 bob. So that's 22,000 roughly in a month for the first 3 months, with the possibility of extension. Now, in such a situation, because there are some who are filthy rich and fabulously wealthy who don't even, they laugh in the face of 10,000 bob or 23,000 bob. But just imagine what that has done to cushion. It does not mean it changes or ameliorates it's a cushion. When you have emergency response, you need to cushion people before you go into the early recovery and what to do next, and then the longer term recovery. Because this COVID is an event. It's not an event, it's a process. It's going to be with us for many, many months.
The size of that economy, though.
Yes, but okay. So even if you say 10,000 bob for 2 people. Oh, by the way, they also considered underage, and now this would interest Kenyans because of all the underage, all the teenage pregnancies that we are seeing. Underage parents. So if you have a 16-year-old mom, she will get equivalent to 2 people's allowance, so that 22K or so in a month. So she's not immediately disqualified because she's not over the age of 18. Single parent households receive equivalent to 2 allowances. So they have tried their best, and I'm sure it is fraught. And I'm sure if there was a Brazilian civil society actor here or someone, they would also argue about the ways in which it has been weaponized, how certain people have been left out of the equation. But the bottom line is that the government was pressured. Actually, the legislature was pressured, and ultimately the president sanctioned this move. So if in Kenya, let's look at it, 5,000 bob per household per month, for up to, don't even say 2 people in a house, just say one,
Just
5,000 bob. 5,000 bob for up to 6 million households for 3 months. That will be even far less than what we are going to waste on this economic stimulus, sijui koso, what, this of that, and we are going to purchase, build desks, buy desks, and so on and so forth. If we started with cash, and I'm a firm believer in cash working, and having been in the humanitarian sector for many years, even in the refugee settings, where a lot of the humanitarian action happens, IDP settings, refugee settings, actors have come to the realization that cash works. Because every time you distribute commodities, food, and so on, you get less bang for the buck. You lose. In fact, somebody was saying to distribute $1 worth of relief would cost you 94 cents. So almost 100%. Now, that is perhaps extreme. But if you look at cash, and you look at a country like Kenya, where mobile money is the way we operate and live our lives, how lean, mean, and efficient wouldn't it be? And let me give you my statistics. With the small little initiative that has been solely crowdfunded, supported by Kenyans on Twitter or through Twitter, and Kenyans in the diaspora, Kenyans in Kenya, we have reached about 1,800 families. Yeah, of that 4.1 million shillings that we have been able to raise, about 3,999,000 has gone directly into the pockets of the 1,800 families. About 77 to 80,000 has gone to Kutuma. So the costs that we pass on, that we pay Safaricom whenever we disperse the cash. And this entire situation, this entire disbursement has been run by me from my little home office. So if you had an entire government infrastructure with hundreds of millions or billions at its disposal, with access to the information, to data about people where they are across the 47 counties, because this vulnerability is not just a Nairobi vulnerability. Imagine how we would have ameliorated and cushioned the lives of so many Kenyans. If every single household, when we send 2,000 bob to a family, they say, haki nimenunua chakula for 1 month. And even I am shocked, and even I am ashamed, because I would not know how to feed my family right now. And I speak as this nebulous middle-class Kenyan space, because we are all one step away from brokenness. I would not know how to feed my family on 2,000 shillings a month. Yet there are people who will do that. And then they say, in fact, alafu 300 bob nikaeka kando, and then I went to buy some sukuma wiki so that I can continue my business. Somebody else said, I gave 500 bob to the landlord. Then I realized people are paying rents of 2,000 bob, 1,500 bob, 4,000 bob. And even that they don't have. So 5,000 shillings every month.
How much would that come to? 5,000 shillings every month times 6 million people. I'm looking at it for 3 months. That's 15 by 6. That's 90. That's what, 9 billion?
A month?
In 3 months.
9 billion in 3 months, and we said
that?
The government doesn't have money.
And the government doesn't have money. The government is about to spend money on a referendum.
Or is that 90 billion?
No, it's not 90 billion. Who has? It's back. This is back of the envelope.
Let's say that again.
Okay, let us say
15 by 6. 15,000 by 6 million.
15,000 shillings.
Yep.
Yes, by 6 million.
By 6 million. That's 3 months cushion of 5,000 shillings per.
90 million.
It's 90 million.
No, it's more.
It can't be
it's
90
more than
million.
that.
It's 9 billion.
It's 9 billion, sorry.
So, if we have money for a referendum, if we have money to build desks, if we have money for all kinds of, we have money to pay the Chinese. Apparently, we are a bit broke now. To our terms for the SGR loan, we have all this money. Look at our proposed budget. Wasn't it 2.7 trillion
shillings.
And you're telling me you don't have 9 billion shillings
We
to
actually
cushion
spent
people
10 billion
for 3
shillings
months.
on the
For 3
cushion for the
months.
Inua Jamii.
Yes.
It was 10 billion, and the Inua Jamii families are what, about 1 million? And that's why they received 8,000 shillings.
But let me tell you something that has also annoyed me a
Hold
little
on.
bit. Sorry, go ahead.
Let's do this quick break. It's
Yeah.
7:45. It's a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room with us this morning is active citizen Charity Say. She's beyond here with getting fed up with everything that's happening in the country. And she says, I'm doing something about it, which is something that's positive. That's why we have her here in the studio. So that we can help her do something about it. Good morning. You can join the conversation, 0719 012 600. Minutes to 8 o'clock. It's a situation. And in this conversation, Charity Says here, and she's saying, look, if we just said that we identify 6 million families in the country, and we say these ones are vulnerable, we as a government can support them for 3 months, giving them 5,000 shillings a month for 3 months. That's 15,000 shillings in the 3 months times the 6 million families. We have arrived at a figure of 9 billion shillings. 9 billion shillings. This is something that could be doable. This is some serious cushion that's going directly to the people. Giving cash directly to the people, right? As opposed to what the government is doing now.
Well, the government is providing, they talk about commodities, or they talk about there was a bit of food here and there. And I'm not saying food is not important, because in some places, especially with the elderly, even with this cash transfer initiative, Humanity Kenya, you find that the elderly or the infirm would prefer a delivery of food, because they're not able to leave their homes. And the elderly who don't have phones registered, they don't have M-Pesa, by the time they're giving their M-Pesa to somebody to go buy for them, they have lost 50 cents on the dollar as far as they were concerned. So you can distribute food targeted. You can distribute commodities, which would be masks, sanitizer, soap, and other things. But by and large, cash works. If I called my mom today and said, Mom, I'm really, really broke, I'm struggling. And by the way, I've had to do that many times in my life. And she sends me a gunia of potatoes. I'll say, thank you very much, Mom. But can I eat all those potatoes myself? I mean, I could, but they'll have gone off by the time I get through.
Yep.
So what do I end up doing? I end up saying, who wants potatoes? So I sell some of those potatoes off so that I can have money to go buy salt or oil or sugar. This is common sense. Cash works. Would you rather cash? If you say, I need to pay my rent, I need to buy food, would you rather somebody starts writing checks to your landlord, or checks to the hospital or to the school, or do they give you cash and say you're an adult? This is my way of dignifying you. Take your money, do what you need to do. And by the way, unconditional is very important to underscore here. In an emergency, we're talking about unconditional cash support. If it is cash support for development purposes, if you're trying to build an agricultural space in a particular high yield part of the country, and you're providing grants, cash grants, they can be conditional. You're going to buy a cow, you're going to do this, you're going to do X, Y, and Z. But in such a situation, what people require is just unconditional cash, and not cash where you're flashing it in neon and embarrassing people and telling them, I gave you money, and then you have these big shows and public displays. Maybe this is why cash is not so nice for the country, for the government, because cash doesn't have the sexiness that distributing unga has. Because you can't see it, you just know it's in somebody's phone. And so for me, where I sit is that if the government is really keen and concerned and cares about its people, as it is constitutionally mandated to do, it should look at cash. That is the quickest way to keep people alive. And when we reopen the economy, because right now, as Eric says, it was never closed, then we will see how people can reintegrate into the workforce. And in this, I also want to talk about mental health. When people are sitting at home with no work, you are working, you are happy, you had your 15K a month, or your 30K a month, or your 5K a month, or your 50, 100, whatever it was. Suddenly you don't have work. You're sitting at home. Your children are staring at you. You can't buy tokens for your stima. You can't pay water. You can't do anything. You can't buy drugs. You lose your sense of worth, your sense of self-esteem. And we have many people who are sinking into depression as we speak. And all of these things could be resolved with just a bit of cushioning. The idea that somebody cares about you and cares for you and your welfare does so much to brighten the day. You know, when I receive feedback, and I always tell people, this is not from me. I'm a conduit. It is wonderful Kenyans, 40% of them in the diaspora, 60% of them in Kenya, who have sent 1,000 bob, 50 bob, 500 bob. I almost fell off my chair once when I received 100,000 shillings. There's one particular person who gives 10,000 shillings every week since the 23rd of March when we started. And this is day number 95. Of this since I started this initiative, 10K every week. And I say, God bless this person forever and ever. But that 10K for me is as important as the 50 shillings and the 100 shillings. And in fact, of all the givers, about 600-700 of them that have given so far to this initiative, about 50% of them are repeat givers. So you see, we have to together. And what this whole Humanity Kenya is saying is that if the government has decided that its people are not important, yes, we can hold them to account, but as citizens, we have the ability and we have the heart, and we should be able to empathize, to say, if I have that 50 bob, I will send it in. I will help dignify a sister or a brother of mine in need right now. And when we come back...
I'm sure the government, because the government understands the spirit of Harambee, the government understands the spirit of giving. Government is people. And these people participate in all these things that we're talking about, the fundraising, the harambees, being benevolent and helping other people in need, cash and directly, right? Because the government understands all these things, there must be a reason. That I'm trying to sit here and wondering and asking myself, what is the reason that the government decided not to go that very open and direct route of cash transfer to the people?
There's nothing in it for them.
For example, saying that what we're going to do is withhold revenue collection, 248 billion shillings worth of revenue being withheld in terms of waiver on taxes and tax rebates and all, and saying let that money stay in the community.
There's nothing in it. Tell me what is in it for the government to keep its citizenry alive. Citizens, poor, downtrodden, desperate, thinking about their next meal are the most easily manipulated citizens.
And here you are as a politician, knowing full well that this is what you do, knowing full well that when you're campaigning, you actually go and give out cash to people to vote for you, knowing full well that because of this COVID-19, you have access to the pass, right? You choose not to do what you do during campaigns by saying, you know what, as a government, we are giving you cash directly from this kitty, receive the money directly.
If you gave cash...
I'm just thinking a politician would have jumped at that opportunity like this and said, 245 billion shillings, we are going to collect it, we are going to distribute it. You see, the government of Uhuru, nimepata pesa kwa M-Pesa, hii ni pesa ya Uhuru. Do you know what that means? But the political class has actually been pushed by some technocrats or even by themselves not to go that route. Why? There must be something.
You know,
there must be something we're not seeing.
What I see and what is so clear to me is the reason why politicians are able to get people to vote for them come every election cycle is they are so poor that by the time that 500 bob or 1,000 bob is being distributed during that electioneering period, and you know, this is the only 1,000 bob I'm going to hold for the next 5 years. I better go this direction because at least this person every cycle will give me a bit of money, because otherwise I get nothing else. But if you are cushioning consistently, providing a basic income to citizens, they would begin to think in terms of issues and they would vote according to issues, not personalities. Politicians are not stupid people. They understand that poor, downtrodden people are the best and the easiest to manipulate. In fact, if you look at these areas, let's look at Nairobi alone. If you look at Korogocho, you look at Kariobangi, you look at Kibra, you look at Mathare, you look at Mukuru, you look at Kawangware. All of these, see, they have members of parliament. The same members of parliament who are vociferously in favor of this or that or the other. Actually, across the board, you'll find they're both Tanga, Kieleweke, all the politicians, all MPs from across the board are members of parliament of these areas. Why haven't they proposed what you proposed? Because they want to come and say, come 2022, I'm here for you. Mama Shikahi, Mama Shikahi. Lesos used to be distributed during the Kanu era. Then it's bags of sugar. It's flour.
Allow me to differ with you on a small point.
I like differing.
You refer to these politicians as being intelligent. I beg to differ.
City.
No, they are very clever, these guys.
No, they're not.
They
are extremely short-sighted. If you think that poor people are easy to manipulate, you are really short-sighted, and therein lies your stupidity. Because you can manipulate them only for a season. And then something else happens. It was possible before COVID because they had normal lives. They had hope. COVID has killed hope also. Among the things that we can say COVID is responsible for is hope. It has killed hope. I quoted Napoleon the other day and I said, this is what Napoleon said. An army marches on its belly. And I decided to give it a little twist and I said, the belly can make an army out of the citizens. If people have hope that they will eat, you can manipulate them. If people are looking at consistent hunger, if people are going days without food and you think they are still manipulatable. Okay, that one.
Manipulatable.
Thank you. Going to school is good. Then you are no longer wise. You are no longer clever.
So maybe they are clever by half.
That perhaps is the correct term.
So I'd like you, CT, then with that whole analysis, explain to me why would the government not go that route? Look at it's trying to do it, but it's still wanting to shield itself from being direct.
Okay, when we say government, what do you mean?
Government state.
No, there's a difference.
There's kazi mtaani, money, billions of shillings that's going to the youth as cash transfer, but it's being masked as kazi mtaani, come and sweep the streets and then you get paid and then you go home. This is cash transfer coming straight from the government.
It is
to
cash
the youth.
transfer.
There's the money that is going from the Ministry of Labour and Social Protection to the 100,000 and so people, the 2,000 bob. It is cash transfer going to a certain group. There's the Inua Jamii, cash transfer straight going to a certain group of people. There's now what we're talking about, the withholding of the 250-something billion shillings in terms of money being sent back into this cash transfer. There's the payee, withholding of payee. This cash. Government could have collected all this money and just gone into that route of saying, you know what, this is the best time for me to manipulate these people, if you want to call it manipulating, by just collecting all this money and giving everybody 1,000 bob.
You know, Eric,
Okay, we've come to the top of the hour. Hold on. It's 8 o'clock. It's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
All right, Sticker Road is looking really good today, guys. I don't think we're going to have much problems there. Where we have an issue today, yes, is Jogo Road and a little bit of Mombasa Road, but that is normal morning traffic. The Jogo Road issue is different, though, because of a fire that is still being fought at the Gikomba market. Coming out of Westlands, a little bit of traffic, but not too much. You'll be able to get your way through. So it's not a bad day traffic-wise today. Let's hope it remains that way. If something does jump out at you, let us know. SpiceFMKE on Twitter, and we can share the word or spread the word, as it were. The southern and eastern bypasses are open for business today, and actually, we don't have much of an issue. Gong Road also looks pretty good. SpiceFMKE, like I said, let us know what you see.
Spice up your life. Traffic. This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation
2 minutes
Room,
after 8,
witty,
it's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest
engaging,
conversation. The
deep,
conversation continues even when the mics are off. And now the mics are back on. So let the conversation continue from where we left off. I was asking the question, why do you think the government is not doing all these things? There's money being given. Trump is giving people checks directly. It's campaign
He's even
season.
writing his name on them and
They
saying
evolved that system along. They have food stamps. Okay?
they have a welfare system.
They
in
have a
place.
clear welfare system.
But in this particular one, Trump decided cash directly. Check signed by Trump.
You know,
You
research.
know
Let's
why?
save it.
That one also
Eric.
had it was a big PR move. We also
Yes.
must accept.
But,
But at the end of the
there
day,
you
people were
go.
people were receiving money. At the end of the day, regardless,
People were receiving money
and they
directly.
could still come
Silvio.
back and ask for more.
And here we
right?
are, as Kenyans. Do you know how we'd be talking now if everyone was saying, I've received this money
check
from the
from Uhuru
government?
Kenyatta.
Yes. Uhuru would be standing and saying, now we have so far, how much have you released, Ukuri Atani? Yes, this month. And these are the number of people. And MD of Safaricom, the MD of Airtel, is the money going to the people? Yes, we are. And Jen Karuku is sitting there
You
and
know,
saying,
the president doesn't send this money.
It's from the National Treasury.
All these,
He will take
all
the
these
glory.
programs that you speak of, Eric, were thought of by bureaucrats.
Yep.
This Anwar Guru, who is now under great scrutiny, at the time when she was a civil servant, this, what we call this system that we have within the former provincial headquarters.
Huduma.
Yes, she is credited
The Huduma Centers.
with having been, should we say, been among the people who brought
pioneers
it
of
into
the-
being. Kenyans don't lack for people who have ideas that can be implemented. That one, there's no shortage, believe me. And that's why I asked when you say government, where? There are some people within government who come up with brilliant ideas. Then it's sat on, it's ignored, that report never gets to where it should get. So that even isn't the issue here. Eric, the people who are supposed to send that money, at what level? The PS also doesn't send that money. So who sends that money? Who are the people who are supposed to send that money?
If the order comes from the top and says, this is
Rather,
the
in this
strategy.
government, order can come from the top, it will be ignored. It will be subverted. It will go around in circles.
Just hear what I'm saying. If the strategy was direct cash transfer, because this is what Chero is advocating, direct cash transfer. Don't mask it and say, go and sweep the streets and then you'll get paid. Stop masking this thing. Just say every household, and these are the identified household, X number of households per county or in these counties are going to receive 2,500 shillings every week or 5,000 shillings every month for the next 3 months. Cash straight to your mobile phone. If you don't have a mobile phone, if you have an account, whatever, let's work on the modalities of how you shall receive, but you shall receive it in cash. And then this is a cushion. Direct. Stop masking it in terms of, there is a Inua Jamii and then these people are going and they had already been identified. And
Your teacher had a view on this particular matter.
I think it's an issue of competence. And from the beginning, I had...
whose competence?
Government's, executives' competence. It's two things. It's a competence issue because I believe that this government has been too proud to seek advice from experts. If I say I'm in the humanitarian world and I come from that field, there are very many like me who understand and know what needs to happen in an emergency setting, which is very different than a ordinary development setting. That's number one. It's a competence issue. Number two, cash transfers don't exist in a vacuum. The systemic corruption that exists in this country today is such that the gravy train would also catch cash transfers. So I say I have been running Humanity Kenya on my own, pro bono. I've never earned a shilling from it, which one could argue is also not a good business model. But the idea for me was proof of concept. Is it possible to get cash quickly out to families? The answer is yes. On my micro scale, because I'm only one person, is it possible? Yes. But if you now come back to the system, and I'd say the government has the capacity, the infrastructure, the ability, but the gravy train of corruption makes it that the attrition would be incredible. So if you're sending 8K to a family, how much on top of that 8K has to go here and there and so on before it reaches the family? Or how much from the 8K? Maybe that 8K was supposed to be 12K. And by the time it reaches the family, it looks like 4K. Somebody has tweeted in response, because your social media team is sharing snippets. And someone says, government, just like I said, government is not interested in cash transfers because the corruption quotient is not as high.
That's the word.
So
interested, not competent.
Here we go.
No, there's also a competency issue, because let me tell you, for
Competence.
me, yes, let me tell you, if I tell you the stories from the scammers to the genuine people, the kinds of lessons learned in this proof of concept that I've been working on, Humanity Kenya, you can now multiply that or power it by I don't know how many, to imagine the types of loopholes that could exist in the system. Older people over the age of 70, for example, for Inua Jamii, were considered dead, even though the money was being disbursed to them. So all money goes into a bank account and somebody goes and withdraws it. So you would end up, at the end of the day, maybe losing 70 cents on the dollar. It is a competence issue, and they're not willing to understand that you need specific software and program and system to understand how you're going to triage and send money out.
This incompetence
is there,
But
my friend.
I'm
Okay.
asking the question, could this incompetence be contrived?
Yes.
The incompetence.
What we talked about even with education, the commercial interest, which is exactly what we are saying here, the commercial interest of who benefits where. In terms of competence, in terms of the system of saying this is what we're going to do, even the president actually came and said, we are rolling out this cash transfer to 100 and something thousand people. He said, we have realized that the best way to do this is by giving people cash directly. Why? Because previously we've been saying we're taking food to them. Food to people, if you earmark 100 billion shillings for feeding people and taking direct food stuff to people, you are talking about purchasing food at above market rates. You're talking about storage of food at above market rate because you're dealing with government. You're talking about packaging this food at above market rates. Then you're talking about the logistics of transporting the food to the places at above market rates. It arrives to the people. There's a chief. There's the local community leaders who are all corrupt, and they're all the ones who are holding the cash, like the food, like what your friend in Kibra was telling you. They're the ones that will take the food and keep in their homes and decide who gets what, and the rest I hoard, I sell. You see, all that, it's because of the commercial interest.
So if it's,
but do they know that they can actually send money directly to people?
Of course they know that. So if it's not a competence issue, then it's a political will issue.
Right.
It's a greed issue, because there's nothing in it for them when you transfer cash. And you cannot manipulate a population when you give them an unconditional cash transfer. When you give people money before elections, you're saying, vote for me.
Yeah.
I give you this money, you vote for me. This government, this regime has no conceptualization of saying, here, take this, feed your family, end off.
And be
Keep
okay.
walking. And
This
be
is the
okay.
thing.
We want
And
you to
I
be
want
okay.
nothing
In terms
in
of
return.
So
in
we
terms of well-being for the citizen,
So we
I think
can
it's
argue.
clear.
Even you're already questioning yourself. What am I getting in return for this program that I'm doing? It's a proof of concept. I want nothing in return for a politician.
No politician would say they want nothing in return. In fact, part of the pushback, the very little blowback I've received on social media is people are digging to see, has Chero stolen money, or has where's your accountability, or this or that or the other, because nobody can believe that somebody can just do something like that. And trust me, it has taken many, many hours. And if I did not have a supportive partner or a supportive household or the wherewithal to spend 16, 18 hours a day sifting through requests and sending money out, I wouldn't have. So I understand that I'm in a unique position, which is slowly also being eroded because I'm not in a vacuum. COVID-19 is hitting all of us and affecting all of us. So for me, this government has either decided to engage in Malthusian action and hope that people starve to death.
Who was Malthus?
No, well, with the idea that food insecurity will kill enough people, you'll die. It's a form of eugenics. I mean, just get rid of. Let the fittest survive,
and then you deal with the weaklings.
And in any case, when you go to Mukuru kwa Njenga, or you look at the 5,000 families whose houses were demolished in Kariobangi, these are fodder for the industries in this particular area, even where we are seated. You know, all the industries back here. If they die, more will come. When we open up the place, there'll be more young, unemployed people from the villages, the rural to urban migrants who will come and work. So who cares whether Fulani dies or Fulani dies? It doesn't matter. It's not in your interest. Look at where they live. Look at the lack of sanitation. Look at the lack of services. This is a government whose public policy has failed the underserved communities and the poorer people. Why on earth do you expect them suddenly to want to give them cash? Why? It's not in their interest. They've never cared and they will never care. And until we have a country that places people at the center of its planning, that truly cares for and loves its population, that allows the technical experts who are hamstrung in ministries to do their work, that allows money to flow from point A to point B, with only basic, lean, mean administrative costs, we will continue to see this happen. So when you look at COVID, it was a perfect storm. My first op-ed that I wrote in March, I said, this is a perfect storm.
This is just showing you what the real situation is. And we talk about the fact that, it is, when we talk, if you want to look at any sector that this has affected, we talked about education. We said, well, okay, look at other countries and they were able to do this. Why? Because they had systems in place that would allow anything that came along to be taken up by that. A system comes in place. If you look at Europe, for example, and say education, why were they able to come to school in shifts? They come to school 2 days a week. They can do the rest of the work at home. Because before that, they had already created a system that worked. So now here in Kenya, come COVID, can you imagine if infrastructure had already been set up? Can you imagine if water and sanitation was already being provided? Can you imagine if health systems were already set in place so that people could get access to quality healthcare?
Correct.
If those things were already put in place, come COVID, it would have been much easier for you to now buffer your people.
Do we actually have systems? And that they don't work is not something that, should we say, it didn't happen by chance. Our systems are eroded. You can't have a situation where we keep talking about things that worked in the past and in the present they don't work. How? And you talk about many things. You had an education system which had all worked. Same country, probably some of the same people who are there. I think the one thing that captures the human mind and even gets to the point of capturing your soul usually is your religion. What you've chosen to believe in. We have decided, remember the other time we were talking about false gods? We, as Kenyans, we seem to have decided that money has become a god. And so the pursuit of it is something that consumes us at the cost of all else. Now, ask yourself, we talk about thievery. We talk about corruption. We talk about impunity. All in pursuit of wealth at whatever cost. Damn the rest of the people. Damn anything else that may be considered good, but it must be pursued.
Kaziwa Vijana.
Kazim Tani.
Thank you. I always get it wrong. But that alone is an example. One of the many things of these things that have been set up. These individuals, not that we are guessing, somebody spoke to us the other day and said, yes, he actually signed up for this work. It's very easy to get. You go, you sweep the streets, you do whatever you need to do. You're paid 600 shillings a day, but then you're paid for the week. So let's assume you're working Monday to Saturday. Those are 6 days, earning 6,600 shillings, 3,600 shillings. However, they will tell you that the money that they're actually going to pay you is around 2,700 shillings. So you just assume that 900 shillings went to somebody. And if they're supposed to pay you on Friday, they will tell you, Jero, wait, we will actually pay you next week. So the money is there. The work has been done.
These are criminals.
The amount that you're
in
supposed to
neighborhood.
get, you're dealing with the fund
It's
that
not
even
government, by the way.
no. Wait now, the
We've got
fund
to
that
be
has
very
even
clear.
been set
Yes.
up. The fund that has even been set up. Who are you going to go and ask? It's
Yeah.
not the government office you
No,
go to and
the
then
government has,
exactly.
the government has released the money.
The government
Yes,
has
I
released the money,
understand.
the government
I
has done the
understand.
job.
I understand.
Your
I
local
understand.
guy there.
But if you have an issue, are you
we
going
are
to go
disagreeing.
when you have an issue that the money is missing? Are you going to go to Bwana Eric at the shop? Maybe you're going to go to the government office and say,
Yes.
I did work for 6 days, 600 shillings, but I've only received 2,700.
Yes.
You're not going to go and ask the
How
guy.
does the
Exactly.
government
Go
wash?
to the government
So,
office.
you
so
know
when-
how this thing works.
When you go to the government will start an investigation. However, you have to remember
You
that
cannot
the
absolve the
official,
government from this.
who is stealing the money is an individual official.
Who
It's
works
not
for?
government. When you see a police officer receiving a bribe,
is
it's not
government?
government receiving bribe. It is a cop receiving a bribe. Let's
But
separate
who
them.
is the cop part of? What is the cop? The cop
No.
is
He's
part
also
of
part
a
of
system.
society, just
you
like
know,
you.
there
No,
are
no,
things
you're
we
very-
apportion
I
to
disagree
that.
with you,
There-
Eric.
Okay, this disagreement is wonderful.
Mm.
Can we continue disagreeing?
Yes.
Okay. There are things you can apportion to the government. There are things you must apportion to the individual citizens and people who hold certain positions. You'll not go anywhere with that case. You know why? You're told sign here.
Yeah.
And it'll be against having received 3,600 shillings.
And you know very well that you received 2,700.
No, forget that one. You just told, here's your money. You can't sign here.
Sign,
You sign.
and you go.
End of story.
And you see, if you don't sign today, you'll never work here again.
Let me tell you what the scammers
The
did.
crooks.
What the scammers did with Humanity Kenya, and I finally found the little syndicate of very smart young people. You almost want to offer them a job because they're very clever, and it speaks. So I'm agreeing and disagreeing. They would tell a family or an old mama somewhere in Kibra and say, "Uko na Twitter? Hapana. Wacha nikusaidie. Let me open for you a Twitter account, and I will send your name and so it's a genuine name, a genuine phone number, a genuine ID number, and even a genuine
Human
situation."
being.
And say, this mama lives here, she's a widow, she's this, she's that, and the other. So the person wrote to me. But of course, if you fool me once, shame on you. If you fool me twice, shame on
you.
on me.
Yeah.
So the first time they come and they say, oh, okay, this is this mama, disburse 2K, and say, I write back to the Twitter message and I say, I've sent 2K, God bless. So this person immediately knows that Mama so-and-so on her phone has received 2K. And then he had already told her, for me to register you have to promise me 200 bob.
Yep.
It's the same thing you're talking about. So where I look at the cop and his individual responsibility or her individual responsibility for receiving a bribe, or that official, once a government has released the funds, they are part of a rotten system that allows this to thrive. Let me give you a very big example. The Ngiritas. When you see the Ngiritas and sijui, my child has become a chokora, my bank accounts have been frozen, etc., etc. The Ngiritas, yes, have received and are part of a criminal enterprise around this. But who are the masterminds? And why is it that we always, to the exclusion of the overall heads, focus on the little people? So we shall whip, we shall vilify. So I could have these little scammers arrested and put in.
Sometimes,
and yes, sometimes you need
Sometimes
to.
the little thief, like that guy who was
Only
stealing
200 bob.
the person who was
The guy is
stealing,
taking 10%.
the person who's stealing from the guy who
What if
called
it
us
was a 2
yesterday
billion
from
shilling
Kitale and
project?
said
10% of that.
See, it was from Kitale, right? The guy who called us and told us
200 million.
he was working in
Yeah.
Kitale and he did
So you're just being proportionally
the
smart.
fund. The person who's robbing from him is basically some low-level guy somewhere who's been given the responsibility of coordinating, of managing, of sending.
Of paying these folks.
This is a system in society. You see, like your person, the person who was trying to scam your program. This is not government.
Actually,
This
where's the
is
scam?
Absolutely.
Where's the scam? This person actually enabled. No, please. Allow me to say what
By
I
the
want
way,
to say.
I'm about to agree with you.
Yes.
By the way, I'm about
Where's
to
the
agree with you.
scam? This mama didn't know that this
This
help
thing.
was available.
Yes.
This fellow made it possible for
her
she
to get
actually
some-
received. He did not give a phone number that was false. Same phone number. The mama actually received the money. All he asked for is 200 bob for his services.
For his services.
Where's the scam?
The scam is that the scam lies in the fact that I did not ask for 200 for myself. So when an unconditional cash grant is given, nobody has a right. That's why I call them clever. You say my disclaimer was that these are smart people who are they're entrepreneurs. They're trying to hustle and earn a living. But because this was an unconditional unconditional cash transfer. And I am accountable to those who have given funds in the same way the government should be accountable to its taxpayers. I have the responsibility, instead of saying, okay, let people just go and make the money that they want to make, I should
It's a
come
moral
in
scam.
and say, you have no right. And that's how I discovered them, called some of the mamas and babas and people who had been asked to pay. Some were even asked to pay a K. And then there was somebody who said, no, me, I don't want
See
to.
now.
So it is, look, I am agreeing with you that the person has a right to say, see, I can hustle, I can earn a living.
And I can get a little bit of something.
You
and
know
not
that-
100
you
people.
know-
No. Let's not
But it's
excuse them.
not-
You don't have a right. You don't have a right. You don't have a right to take advantage of the disadvantaged, because that's exactly what you're doing.
I'm
If you're
asking
coming
where
to offer
again is the
information,
disadvantage. Where is this person being taken advantage? They
let's look.
didn't know.
Let's do weather first, all right?
Who
And then we
didn't know?
continue the conversation.
Okay, the person who was receiving the money
The
didn't
mama
know.
did not know
Okay.
that
This
Chero
thing was
but
available.
is helping.
but does not entitle the person to steal from her.
It doesn't at all, because the person who's coming to do this is coming to do the same. You're
How did
trying
he
to
steal? He agreed ahead of time that this is what he's going to get for his work.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
enabling
yeah.
her to
Why
get this
can't
money.
he Vijana?
The procurement
That's why they will
officer
accept
at the government
2,000
ministry
because
tells
they
you
had
in
never
advance
take
that
that,
I'll
they've
make
done
sure that you
nothing.
get this
Exactly.
money. That is not stealing.
No. Procurement and government,
21.
totally
Where is
different
all-
story.
All right, a little bit warmer in Nairobi this morning. We're likely to see a chance of showers, quite high for later on. However, highs of 23 and lows of 12. All right, taking a look then into Nyeri, where it's mostly cloudy this morning at 15 degrees. It'll be a showery afternoon with highs of 21. And in Nakuru, likely to be a wet afternoon as well with highs of 23. Currently mostly sunny conditions with a temperature of 14. It's mostly sunny in Eldoret this morning. However, showers will come down with thunderstorms later with highs of 21 and lows of 12. Kisumu is partly cloudy, highs of 27. It'll be a wet afternoon, as it will be in Kakamega, which is currently 17 degrees and partly cloudy. Malindi is mostly cloudy at 26 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 24, with showers to be recorded in the afternoon. It continues to come down in Mombasa, partly cloudy conditions, however, at 25, highs of 28 and lows of 24, with showers continuing well into Friday. Kampala is partly cloudy at 21 degrees, highs of 26 with thunderstorms later, and lows of 18. Take a look at Dar es Salaam, where it's mostly sunny this morning at 24 degrees, highs of 24. And in Joburg, it's clear skies and sunny conditions all through. Currently at 4 degrees, we'll see highs of 17 and lows of 3. And finally, for now, in Lagos, it's clear skies at 25 degrees, cloudy conditions to follow with highs of 29 and lows of 24.
It's the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation in the room. Eric Latu, Ndu Oko, C.T. Muga, Chero Chitse, our guest host for today. We're talking about, social protection and what the government is doing, not done, what the government could have done or could do going forward. The scammers, again. So somebody comes and hears, okay, there's a program that could benefit my friend Mama so-and-so, all right? Just for coming to share the information with Mama so-and-so, I demand a payment.
No, this one is not just a question of advising. They even introduced you to a technical concept called Twitter,
Yeah.
which you didn't know about.
Yeah.
And in the absence of this Twitter, that money was not possible.
Yeah.
A service here has been provided.
Yes.
What you're asking this person to do is to be philanthropic.
Yes.
Okay.
Because that's a whole program.
Yes.
It's philanthropy top to
Yes.
bottom.
Now, what I'm trying to explain to you is that particular ethos, unfortunately, is not to be easily found among a certain generation in this country. They don't think like that.
It's not a certain generation.
Oh, no.
It's across generations.
There's something that I'm trying to explain here. When I say it's generational, there is a generation who does completely. The other generations, like mine, where you could argue that concept of philanthropy would be more welcomed. Because why? They have lived a life where they have seen it. It's an experience that they've had. This other one hasn't seen it. It's not in the experience. It's not in their lived what?
I will remind
They
you
don't know what
that
it
your
is.
generation contains the number of chiefs that we know. These chiefs are the ones who've been eating relief food.
You are referring
Eating
you are
relief food.
referring to the committed thieves and
Yes.
vagabonds and
So it's not a
vagrants.
generational
and-
issue.
No, it is. Because for every chief who is a thief, you will find others who are really very far removed from that.
Yeah.
I would also
And the
agree
same
with
young
you that
people-
what my
One
generation
who's-
has done.
One who's a criminal. There are very many other young people who are helping Jero.
Yes.
Very
I
well.
have some wonderful young people who have gone out on their own door to door. And by the way, these same little scammers started off by reaching out with a genuine problem themselves and saying, I can't pay my rent, or I need to buy food,
And they were helped.
that's how they got to know me, because then they reach out, they share their correct name, their correct ID number, their correct phone number. Then when they receive the chums, they say, Allah,
It's true.
it's true. And then most people call me back in shock. They say, because they don't want me to reverse the funds
Yeah.
in case it was a mistake and they don't want to touch, or if they have Fuliza, they panic because then Fuliza ate all their money.
Yeah.
I say, no, it's unconditional. Then someone will say, oh, I will come and visit you. I say, don't visit me. Don't, just get on with your life. This is not going to change your life, but it'll help you, push you for 1 more or 2 more
To
weeks.
appreciate.
Now, these young people, many of them, on their own, go out of their way to help others. And I would reject gently, not stridently, but gently, the idea that younger people do not understand philanthropy. But what they have is they have grown or come up in a culture where everybody is eating from everybody else.
Yeah. This
And
makes
when
me-
they're underemployed, unemployed, no money, they look and they say, what harm will it do? See, Mama so-and-so will still get 1,800
Yeah,
shillings.
amenipatia ya macho.
And that's why, even though I kind of say, you kids are clever, you know, I get you, I get what you're trying to do, but I still come and say, but that is wrong. And you will not do that on my watch with resources that have been given to me. Now, if the government, by people who I would call then taxpayers, if you
Yep.
looked at Chero as government, then the people who've been contributing to Humanity Kenya, all 4 million shillings so far, are taxpayers, and I'm accountable to them for every single shilling, including telling them, by the way, there may have been some scammers who affected up to 100 families or 120 families.
Yeah.
And this, once I saw it, I arrested it in this and that way and stopped it, and have tried to tighten the controls, change it, work through other intricate
Yeah.
referral systems. That is why I hold the government ultimately responsible for sanctioning and overseeing systemic rot. And we're behaving as though those at the top aren't involved in mega corruption. So by the time a chief is keeping some bales of unga, or somebody is trying to take 600 shillings off kazi kwa vijana, kazi mtaani, they are just monkey see, monkey do. Your children will do what they see you do. But there's also that infantilization. We have a government that is like mommy and daddy, and then we are the children. We need to say we are not children and we are not infants.
You
we
work
can
for
think
us.
for ourselves, and we have the ability to use our conscience and know the difference between right and wrong and be honest, even if we have a regime that is dishonest.
It has occurred to me, though, that it seems that quite a number of people, I mean, I think everybody generally, is so far removed from the thought that your government should actually be able to buffer you and keep you buoyant. That it is your needs that the government should actually be interested and vested in. Look at the countries where this buoyancy was provided. The United States, in the UK. Did you see citizens in shock that their government was actually going to do something for them for 3 months or for the entirety of this period? They were not surprised.
They were even saying, why
they were
not
saying,
6 months?
There you go.
And
Because
how much,
it is
why is it
something-
only $1,000?
it is something that they expected to be done by virtue of the fact that governments are running in the manner in which they are supposed to run. Nobody was in shock saying, oh my God, $1,000 per month for me for the duration of COVID. Nobody was in shock. Nobody was surprised. We were the ones who were in shock here that Britain actually sat down and had a special session where they redid essentially their budget to then buffer the people of the country. We were the ones who were surprised. We were like, what? Such a thing can happen? It's possible for somebody to sit down. Whereas that is how things should actually be. If those in positions of leadership are actually vested in the interests of the people, that is actually how things should be. So I hear you when you say that, you know what, people have divorced themselves from this reality or from this image that, you know, this philanthropy can actually exist. That's what people are in shock
People
about.
expect a
that
lot
people
from
get
government.
this.
That's why we have the phrase serikali's idea. I
that
mean, it comes
people
from somewhere
can
because you
look at the
expect
attitude
serikali to
that you
idea,
get
and it
2,000
does.
shillings and you're thinking, is it a mistake? Do I have to pay it back? Do I have to do something for this 2,000 bob? Whereas that should have been the environment that had already been created.
Where does the entrepreneurial spirit start and where does it begin?
Start and begin.
Yes, you see, it's generational. That argument that I had before that was shot down, I'm picking it up and resurrecting it. Okay? You see, if you come from a generation where employment was more or less guaranteed, after Form 4 you could get a job, after Form 6 you could get a job. University, now jobs were chasing you. Okay? You've heard me say here before, I had a letter of employment before I even finished my last paper at the university. Yes, I knew where I was going to work. Okay. Then you have a generation that know that unemployment is the reality. So they become entrepreneurial. They think. Now, what we're discussing here, you inject a little element of morality, then you feel, yes, they were skirting on the borders of being scammers. And I'm saying, this is an entrepreneurial spirit that perhaps you could argue may have gone a little wrong because the purpose for this money was so that this person benefits. Now, their duty as young people, we are also assuming, should have been, you know what this is for, help this mama just get her money.
Yeah.
But if someone asks for 10%, if you ask me, someone gets 10% for enabling someone to get 1,800 shillings and they take 200. I personally... I have to tweak my mind to find that immoral. I actually have to tweak it. When you take 1,000, that's completely wrong. When you take 500, it is wrong.
But 200 is just a little bit wrong.
It's 10%.
Okay. So,
It's 10%. And I can see the entrepreneurial spirit there. Because there are employment agencies who will say, this amount, some say your first month's salary, some say half your month's salary, whatever it is. If you grow up in an environment where that is the norm, the right and wrong issue doesn't feature. That's really what I'm saying. It doesn't feature.
I get you. When it's not something as directly philanthropic as this one, it's fine to be entrepreneurial. All right. When you're talking about how to apply for AGPO, when you're talking about how to access the Women's Fund, when you're talking about such kind of things, it's an opportunity for you that you're going to thrive in. And here I am, I'm basically helping you with technology or with knowledge. That is okay for you to charge for that business. But when you know exactly what this is, and you're not even telling the person who is the benefactor, I am acting on behalf of so and so.
I'm an agent for such.
Then you are not being truthful, and that's where the wrong side of it comes in. This is the same person who is going to be given the opportunity to bring in the youth like himself and take them to the Kazi Mtaani program, and he'll tell the other youths, because I'm the one who put your name down, because I'm the one who is your prefect, I am going to take 600 shillings out of your 6 days work. I am going to take a full day's work out of the money that you should be receiving for your work. This is exactly the same thing. If we cannot justify one, let's not justify the other.
I completely agree with you. And what you have described is the ethical and moral gray area that so many people exist in because of the systemic culture of corruption that has permeated every sector of our society in Kenya today. So you could even argue and say perhaps they didn't realize it was a wrong thing to do, or they knew but they still thought I can exist in this gray space. But you have hit the nail on the head completely, Eric. And I will still always say I can never turn around to those who have given money to Humanity Kenya and say, well, I didn't know that people were going to make money off of it and be brokers and middlemen and pay themselves money. So sorry, forgive me. No, I will still have to account for every last shilling. And back to what we said an hour or so ago when we talked about no statute of limitations in terms of accountability and restitution. If I know as Cherotich that every single shilling that is misappropriated on my watch, even by people who on their own chose to do it, I didn't tell any young person or old person to go and scam, but they still did it on my watch. If I know that I will be liable for that 2,000 bob, 20,000 bob, 40,000 bob, here my controls will be even more tight than they are now. And so I'm taking it back to government and saying if government knew at whatever level, whether it was a PS, the CS, that functionary in the ministry who oversaw and said, well, it was out of my hands, there was nothing more I could do. If they knew they would be held liable, trust me, there would be a lot more responsibility seen and a lot more accountability. But ultimately, cash doesn't work for these types types of corrupt systems because there's very little to be made. Even this 600 bob off of the kazi mtaani, that is nothing compared to if you had 600 million shillings to build X number of desks. You can take half of that without
still
blinking.
build the desk.
This one of taking 600 bob per young person, that's kazi mob. Why not go for the big things where there's a tender for 2 billion shillings for PPEs? You go and you eat.
That's catered for. Don't worry.
By the way,
When they've already donated, it was at the airport. They just lifted it.
remember,
Part of the stimulus package is that we are going to employ this same youth to build the roads and bridges that have been swept
NYS.
away by the floods. No. In this stimulus. So yes, we already have a plan for that. You're talking about from a big point. We are going to have a tender that is given to a certain company. Give this certain company a tender, which is going to be 10 million shillings to repair this bridge, and that's where we're going to eat the money. So don't worry. We have all grounds are covered. Relax. We got you. We got you. 25 minutes to 9. Let's take a look at traffic.
All right, Mombasa Road, a little bit of a hold up right around, again, Cabanas leading towards General Motors. We know that's going to clear up. We don't have much of a serious traffic situation today. Right around Muthaiga on Thika Road, that's where it's a little bit cloggy, but you'll be fine after that. Gong Road, Langata Road, coming out of Westerns now is given the all clear. We don't have much of an issue. If something does pop up, let us know. Spice of MKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter.
Traffic.
Shero, tell us about humanity. How much are you representing? How does it benefit them? Do you know what they end up doing in the cash?
Thanks. Families receive an average of 2,000 shillings, an average of 2,000 shillings as a one-off cash transfer, unconditional cash transfer. One-off because we depend on support coming in from well-wishers and people who just give whatever they have. In some extenuating situations where you have illness or large household sizes or pregnant, lactating mothers, 4,000 shillings, and it's a one-off. So of the 1,800 families that we have assisted so far, I would say maybe about 1,500 have received the 2,000. The other 308 or so have received 4,000 shillings. But I will say also in that out of that 1,800, maybe there's a doubling up of about 40 families because I have given some repeat assistance. It's very difficult to get to the point where you say, I will give again because there's so many people in the queue. Do you know I'm still in May? I haven't even tackled the June list. I have so many requests in my inbox, but I've also started working with a trusted network of CBOs and referees who are able to say, these are the disabled people in this neighborhood. So it's 2,000 or 4,000 bob. And you do it once. If we were able to have enough money, we would do it more. In fact, 2,000 is nothing. I wished it was 5,000. But at this point in time, when you want to reach as many people as possible, if that 2,000 shillings will buy food for 1 month, I would rather spread it across the board than say make it 5 or 10,000. But trust me, if I had 20 million shillings, if I had 100 million shillings, if I had 500 million shillings, and with systems in place that have zero tolerance for mismanagement, corruption, and so on, cash would go to the families. There would, of course, always be an administrative overhead because when you start introducing people, I can choose to work as a volunteer and pro bono, but I cannot impose that on other people.
On everybody else, yes.
You know? So Humanity Kenya really ad hoc started, as I explained when you called me back in March when I was at about 400,000 shillings raised. Started because somebody said, hey, nisaidie na 150 bob. ni buy unga tu. And that's how it started. And Kenyans on Twitter said, Allah, where can we send this person this money? And I said, well, we could send money to this one particular family, raise 20K or 30K for that family, and that's the end of the story.
Yeah.
Or we could say, actually, if everyone has an appetite and they're able to assist, let's see what we can raise. And that's how it started. So you get to 400,000, I say, Allah, get to 800,000, I'm on the floor. I'm like, people are just sending money. But accountability has been the cornerstone of everything I do. On this 95th day, Kenyans have already received 19 detailed updates from me. How much money we raised, what was carried forward, how many families were reached, how many received 2K, how many received 4K, what was the balance left in the M-Pesa, and we keep moving forward.
From your experience in this space now, you've seen also there are other organizations just like yours that are trying to help and reach out to people. Okay, and I'm taking this direction towards the COVID-19 Emergency Response Fund. What have you heard about the COVID-19 Emergency Response Fund? Money is being collected from corporate organizations, from other well-wishers going into this fund. It has two TURs. One, assist the government in procuring PPEs. We can argue about that forever and a day, but it's there. The second one is this one of helping people that are vulnerable. What have you heard about them and what they're doing?
Before I get to the COVID fund, I want to first of all shout out to all the amazing initiatives. Do not anyone for a second think that the only safety net initiative is Humanity Kenya that Cherotich Sei is running. There are wonderful people like Father John Mwebutsa and the work that he's doing with communities in Korogocho. There are so many. There was Team Pankaj that is distributing food and in a very organized manner. There are millions of Kenyans who, of their own volition, without announcing anywhere, have removed 500 bob, 1,000 bob, helping them. You know, we have a culture of anyway remittances from abroad and also within Kenya back to upcountry, etc. Kenyans have been helping one another. And I want to shout out to all of them, thank them, each and every one of them, because that is the humanity we seek and the philanthropy that we're looking at. Humanity Kenya takes it one step further because Ndu might be helping 16 people there, but she also sends 500 bob or 2,000 bob or 5,000 bob to Humanity Kenya. And when she does that, that also goes into a pool to assist people she will never know or meet in her life, but that is part of her commitment. Now, to the Kenya COVID Fund. Besides some snide and snarky comments I've gotten back on Twitter, I'm in the dark as much as you are. If they have more than 3 billion shillings at their disposal, and maybe $1 billion plus is in the form of commodities and food, which I hear they took so long to distribute in one of the Mukurus. I don't know which Mukuru it was, but they were supposed to distribute it. It went, and then Citizen had to raise the alarm, and then they ended up, and then they ended up distributing it. But ultimately, we don't know how much of this is going to actually translate into cash for communities. The president himself has said cash works. We want to dignify people. He has used some of the sound bites that we have been putting out for a long time. Thank you to him for listening to some of the things we say. But how is the Kenya COVID Fund going to translate those billions of shillings into an effective cash transfer program? Now look at the constitution of that committee. You have bankers, industrialists.
It's captains of industry.
It's captains of industry. Highly competent. You know, we're talking about incompetence. They're highly competent. But are they competent in matters humanitarian? Or are they going to try and put humanitarian cash into their private sector industries and say, this is our understanding of humanitarian action? If all of those people sitting there are parents or brothers or sisters or responsible for other people, where is their heart? And why haven't they even taken off their captains of industry hats and said, as human beings, what do we need to do? People are dying. The poverty is deepening. People are suffering. How are we going to help them? But no, it's nil by mouth. And 2 years later, I kid you not, you'll see that money was dumped into that stimulus
There'll be
package.
something.
And
From
I
their
never read the
from their
It's a
website,
scam
by the way,
already,
the figure officially on their website, maybe they have not updated their website. It
They
says
haven't.
2.655.
It's been like that for
billion,
about six,
right?
7
At some
weeks.
point, it had gone up to 3, and then I think it has come back down to
No, I've never seen it jump up to 3, but
still remaining here. But they
but
keep
we hear
receiving.
there's media
They've
reports
been
about
speaking,
receiving.
They
Yeah.
keep
but
receiving.
not
Yeah.
updating the website
Yeah.
about money that they have been receiving. And unfortunately, with something like this, we keep saying, if you keep quiet, you open the door to speculation. If you keep quiet and there's no evidence of action, you're not telling people what you're doing with it. Apart from the list that you've provided us with, that number one, what you're going to do is procure PPEs. That was one. Assist the government, right? Get money for the people of Kenya to then assist the government to procure some of these things that you need then for the health sector. And then to give money to needy Kenyans, which we don't understand if it has happened or not. So if you don't tell people what's going on, if you don't inform them of your plans, for the longest time was that they're sitting together and they're trying to figure out how exactly this is going to work. You can only plan for so long. At some point, you're going to have to execute. Now, if you're not executing and you're not communicating to people what you're doing, guess what? Because of the historical experience that people have, then that money is going somewhere else. Or at some point, it's going to disappear. And somewhere in the very near or not too distant future, we're going to hear that some of this money then, we don't really know what happened to it, or it went in this direction. And by that time, people are going to throw up their arms. They're going to say, well, okay, it's what we expected anyway.
What happens with gatherings such as this one, with such esteemed individuals, egos tend to get in the way. So even the very thing that they're supposed to do gets mixed up in just
lost.
No, completely. Because you cannot, how do you explain individuals who run very successful enterprises, this one of collecting money so that poor people can benefit?
It can't.
How can this be so complicated?
It passes them completely. How can it be so difficult for them to do something? And look, they've come together with other people who exceed, who surpass expectations, who succeed in their daily do. But somehow they've come together and they're not able to do that thing for a short period of time that they do every day.
And
that's how bad it sounds.
For these people, accountability is very strong.
Very important.
Because they run organizations that are either listed or they know about accountability.
Oh man, they understand it.
They understand that language
It's
very
the bedrock
well.
of their
and
business.
I hear what you're
However,
saying. It's about the ego at the top. But also remember, every person who comes in here is bringing in their support system. All right, I'm coming here. I'm the CEO of ABSA. I'm the CEO of Equity or Kenya Breweries. I'm bringing in my expertise as well from my organization. Now that second level, that's where now the open clash.
And I'm also bringing in my network of potential contributors to the fund. So why would you call Cherotich? What's her network of contributors? What would she be bringing to the
much
table?
will you give
But
us?
I'm not being self-denigrating because I do know I have an extensive network. But what I want to say is when I call them incompetent, it is to trigger and to say, well, if you're not incompetent, then show us how competent you are ultimately. And the essence of emergency response is life-saving. It is immediate and it is life-saving. Anybody who is in planning for 60 days to see how to save lives is not competent in matters humanitarian and is not competent in matters emergency response. If there's an earthquake today, will you have a committee sitting for 60 days to figure out how to... I mean, when there's a mudslide in the Philippines, do they go into committee phase for 6 months before they come to see what to do next? So what I am saying is beyond the development, the medium to long-term recovery post-COVID, we are still in the acute phase of the emergency. And we have a government that is behaving like we are dealing with development programming. That is the problem. If it's a development program, something that you expect to start happening in October 2021, yes, take your 60, 90, 100 days, plan it and do it right. But the minute you go into emergency mode, let me use your words, Eric, there are protocols. There are well-established protocols worldwide in terms of how to respond swiftly, to respond ethically, and to respond in a manner that you minimize the impact on the lives of people. And that is what this government has absolutely failed to do.
That one had failed from day one. I mean, it's become abundantly clear on every day that we wake up, that this government does not know how to deal with people. From the very beginning, we said, this is a point where the government is actually being told, listen, address the needs of your people. We're getting to a point where the president is saying, I want to open up the economy and so that you guys can continue doing your thing. And remember, experts have told us to wash our hands, to wear face masks, and to keep our distancing. If we don't do all these things, please let's not blame anyone. Let's blame ourselves. It's the government saying, I'm throwing up my hands. I want you guys to take over management of this whole COVID thing. I can't. I cannot help you. I cannot support you.
What is this government accustomed to actually doing?
eating our money.
Because they're
It's
clearly
11
not
minutes.
accustomed to helping people or doing anything useful for the citizenry.
11 minutes to 9 o'clock. It's a situation room. Kenya's biggest conversation. 0719 012 600. You can put this as well.
Online,
about,
mobile, and on radio. Instagram at Spice FM.
Community. People are suffering. People need direct support from their government today. Not telling them that, you know what, I have given you tax waiver from your income. And then the person tells you, but I have no income. Okay, then I've already done enough.
That's the best I can do.
God
for
bless
now.
you.
Sasa wanataka nifanye nini? God bless you. Cash transfer actually has already been tested, tried, and used by many of the international NGOs in the country. I know of some of them. In fact, if I just give some examples, take an example of a village somewhere in Samburu, and this international NGO is thinking we'd like to support people by feeding people in Samburu because there is ongoing farming. Some local companies, technology companies come up with those solutions, roll out, go to Samburu, say, we've identified 100 people, 100 families that require support, right? And then the organization says, we're going to be giving these people 5,000 shillings, for example, per month as food token. So instead of saying we do the whole thing that has been done before, look for food, buy food, packet the food, take it to the people, and call them one day and let them come and fight over this food, decide to go to that local community, local village, identify a shopkeeper. Tell the shopkeeper, I'm giving you some cash. This is going to be a very cheap loan to you. Giving you some cash, go and buy these items. Grains, maize, flour, mafuta ya taa, mafuta ya kupika, salt, everything that's required in a family shopping basket. Go and buy these things, stock them in your shop. And I'm giving you this the electronic device. And I'm also giving these 100 people some cards, like ATM cards. Load money worth 5,000 shillings worth onto that ATM card. And you're telling those people, now go to that shop and purchase what you'd like. As long as it doesn't exceed 5,000 shillings in a month. Tap onto the PDQ, it transfers, the shopkeeper benefits, the person benefits, goes home, they have bought. And as you're doing all these transactions, the shopkeeper is repaying the cheap loan that he got anyway in the first place. Over time, that actually develops and expands. More than 100 families are benefiting. At some point, they realize, okay, instead of just saying we give you 5,000 shillings and you cannot get this cash, out of this money that we've put in the wallet that you have, 5,000 shillings, you can access 1,000 shillings directly by going to that shopkeeper and he gives you 1,000 bob in cash, up to 1,000 bob in cash. People go and start withdrawing the 1,000 bob. You start asking them, so what have you been doing with the 1,000 shillings? Now you start getting more and more information. At the beginning of the term, school term, I used that to buy books for the children or to buy uniform. Or at the beginning of the planting season, I used that to buy farm inputs, the seeds and fertilizer and all. You realize that you're actually helping that entire community entirely without necessarily bringing in those middlemen of, bring the food, chief, cut it off. It's working in many donor-assisted programs in this country. The government is completely and fully aware of this. When the government is saying we are piloting cash transfer, you wonder, what do you mean you're piloting cash? It's like you've
How many months have they been
it's like
piloting
you've come
this
up with this innovation. It's a brand new thing that we want to pilot and see how it works.
I mean, in
and then we want to map people and know which people are we going to give them. You just did a census the other day.
So have they also been
You
piloting
already
food
know.
distribution?
For all this time. We don't know this.
You see, what you describe are by the way, you shouldn't be in radio then. I think you should go into that. Listening to you, I was like, you're hired, etc. I don't have a...
Except I'm here to form the company,
I'm
but
here
you
to
know.
form the company, but you're hired. You're hired. No, the thing is, you have described the the multiplicity of innovations that exist when it comes to providing assistance in a lean and mean manner. Why did refugee camps stop distributing food? Because it was too expensive to distribute food and commodities. Middlemen. Imagine if the UN system and international NGOs suffered from these high levels of corruption.
Yep.
And they got to a point where they said, actually, cash works. Cash is a better option, especially when you're integrating refugee and host communities. For example, in Kakuma refugee camp in Turkana County, if you're trying to create an integrated community, not a them and us, what better way than to use cash? And because if you're distributing food to the host community, taxpayers who are giving money to their government to give money to WFP to purchase food for refugees in Kakuma, and then the food is being given to host community, that's an accountability issue there.
Yep.
But when you can rationalize cash and say, in this case, we are helping Cherotich, the refugee, and do the host community member. We are both mamas of X number of children, both hustling and struggling in this arid, semi-arid area. You're giving her 5,000 bob, you're giving me 5,000 bob, and we see what we are going to do. The danger with unconditional cash transfers for those who are into big data. Don't forget that many times people go out there to give money and to distribute assistance. It's because they are
data
data
collection.
mining,
Yeah,
so that they can look at financial sector deepening. So they can see all those young people in Kibra, their hustle is mitumba. So we can extend Mshwari loans to them up to this amount, because based on how we understand their using of this cash grant, this is the type of appetite they would have for a loan. This is how much we can loan to them, and this is how much
we
they
can
will
make back in
exactly.
interest,
So it
yeah.
depends.
Which to me is
on,
okay.
It's okay, but form follows function. So if the function is financial sector deepening, you will create a form that is conditional in nature. You want this information, you want this, you want that, you want that. By the time you're giving the person 5K, even if it was the same 5K for 3 months, you have gotten all the data you wanted. But when the function is dignity, when the function is life-saving, unconditional support for families, the form will be one that is also one where you cannot draw down because the information is voluntary. When I have a mama who comes back to say, Haki, I'm so happy I was able to buy medication for my sick. I didn't even know all those stories. She just got the 4K, but she's come back to tell me
tell
what she
you,
spent.
to account.
Somebody else will say, I spent it all on rent because I was in arrears. And somebody else will come and say, I bought food for the month. Somebody else will say, I sent 400 bob up country to my parents who are struggling so they could buy some sugar and they could buy some oil. So with unconditional cash transfers, big data cannot be your objective. You need to work with the census data that currently exists and other data that is present in the system. And based on how you assess vulnerability, say X number of families are vulnerable, these guys will all get unconditional cash transfers, not to be conflated or confused with other potential profit-making functions. And that is okay, but let's be clear and let's not try to put that into it, put the profit-making, the conditional cash transfers into a humanitarian life-saving initiative.
Actually, I see the humanitarian coming in because humanitarian, it should be for a short time.
Yes, it is finite.
And the
It is
commercial,
finite.
the
For a short
commercial
period of
side
time.
looks
It's long
at
term.
how you create long-term benefit for this community. If you get that data and you know that this is what they do with the money, then you're able to come and support them, that financial deepening, that financial sector deepening, that helps them in terms of sustainability. You're able to come back and say, so this is what this community actually wants. These are their needs, and these are their gaps. Come and fill the gap and meet the gap. I see the point for where both of them should actually be working together. Because when you just give, and then you're telling them, I don't know what you do after I finish these funds that I have.
Actually,
You'll
if
leave
you
them vulnerable.
give that unconditional, if you distribute that unconditional funding, you still get a lot of data because you simply go and ask, what did you do with the money that we gave you? And you'll be amazed
They will give you
at
voluntarily
how well that
information.
money is actually used for the benefit of these or this family or this group. You'll be amazed. Because what we forget is that people actually know what they need and how to go about it.
Yep.
Thank
The
you.
fact that someone is poor doesn't mean they,
They
do not
don't know.
understand
It doesn't
How
mean
to
they're
live.
not
is in their
intelligent.
interest. No.
No.
They do.
But what is also equally amazing is that within this same government and with the permission and understanding of the government, you have institutions who have made certain things work And then you're telling me the government doesn't know that these things work.
Yeah, kuna.
Or they can't okay.
This is why I refuse. The thing of
Yes.
piloting cash transfer and such, when I heard it the first time, I was like, wait, what are you piloting? Just ask Safaricom, they'll tell you where to send the money.
They have that information already.
Go to your
They know.
KNBS and ask them which are the most vulnerable
They will
families
tell you.
in Nairobi today. They will tell
They'll
you.
tell you.
And
Where
they'll
were they
give you the
getting this
information.
data from, which I've just shared back with you?
Yeah.
They have gone to the people. Census information has even mobile number and location. In fact, even to your PIN location of where you live.
Even those Huduma numbers, which I never signed up for. So, but the Huduma number is also there. You
The
can,
Huduma
you
number
can use
information
it
is there.
as a way.
We can say
as
that
part
because of the court
infrastructure.
process, the Huduma, that information was not processed because everything was put on hold. But this government has a lot of information.
But even more significantly,
Piloting is absolutely...
there's enough of research data that can inform you about all these things. It can inform you about what certain people in certain sectors of the economy need. They will tell you to what use this money. There is nothing, there's no shortcut.
Today's proverb.
Okay. If you pick one end of the stick, you will also pick the other.
First, if you want to pick the whole stick.
There's nothing like half a stick. Again, if I may use this analogy, it's like big family. You can't be a big family.
The same way you can't be a little bit safe. That's why you say you're very safe, you're like, as opposed to partially safe.
It's 9 o'clock. Good morning.
All right, so we know that the Nairobi Expressway project is well on its way. It begins at Mlolongo and it goes all the way towards Wayaki Way. And that is affecting traffic a little bit right around Bellevue already this morning as the work continues. So just be aware that that's going to happen, as if you didn't have enough problems on Mombasa Road as well. Okay, so Mombasa Road between Cabanas Junction and where the Eastern Bypass meets the highway, there's some traffic there, guys. And I think it's a regular occurrence every day. So you're just going to, this one, we have to get used to it. And as we get through it, then we shall be all right. Thika Road coming into the CBD, not so bad. You got out, so that's a good thing. I don't think we'll see much more in terms of traffic this morning, but we'll let you know if anything does pop up. And in case you see anything, don't hesitate to let us know. Spice FM KE on Twitter.
Traffic. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary
3 minutes up
and
to 9.
penetrating
The
insights
Situation Room
about the
continues.
state
We're
of the nation.
broadcasting from
This
Nairobi
is
to Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri. Having issues with our frequency in Malindi, but our technical team is working on it. However, you in Malindi, you can still watch us on Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, or on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. Shifting gears a little bit, in the studio with us this morning is our guest host for today, Cherotitsei, active citizen, who's up to here with being fed up with how things are going, but she is doing something about it. So, political parties, we have a new one. What's the name of this new political party?
Service.
Margarine.
Blue Band. Blue Band United.
It didn't take long, huh? It didn't take long.
It's a margarine party.
The Service Party of Kenya.
Yes.
It's the one, perhaps the one that will now usher in this new way of doing things.
Finally,
that could
Canaan
sort
will
out
go.
the problems that Kenyans have been suffering from
We will
for
cross the bridge.
generations.
The Service Party.
Yeah.
Mwangi Kiunjuri and others have unveiled this party.
6 months after he was sacked.
It's not the end. It's the beginning of new parties being formed in Kenya. Expect to see
It's a
more
continuation
in
of.
different regions.
It's the continuation of it.
nothing
because
new.
It's nothing new.
Expect this. You see, when you're going into an election, and it's clear that a vehicle that had been used to get a certain body of individuals into power is disintegrating, what do?
You jump
said-
into another one.
You simply set up a new one. Yes, and call it something like, why didn't they choose the name service?
Utumishi kwa wote.
You're listening to the heartbeat of the country at a particular
If-
point
if-
in
if-
time, and you're
if
saying
only-
that certain
if only-
things are.
if only they understood the permeations of that word, or the extent to which that
What
word
it
can
really
be
meant.
extended.
What? Service.
Service, servanthood, servitude.
That's what they mean.
So
We are here.
If you look
We
at the
are
individuals
here
who,
to serve.
or the one individual who is actually supposedly the head of this particular party, he is not known for having a splendid reputation. No,
of servanthood.
nope.
of service.
No, service to himself maybe yes, but to the country.
As opposed to who?
By the
in
time,
political
by the
sphere,
time
who-
he was,
who has a reputation for service. It's not about service by the person. It's about service by the party. This vehicle is going to come and serve the people.
oh,
You keep reminding us, it's always for the benefit of Wanjiko.
even
This
when
is
I
the
rob you
messaging.
blind, it is for your
For your
benefit.
benefit.
Yes.
This is the messaging. So this is right there in line with that messaging. The service party.
Okay. It's good that they didn't say who the service was for. Abi, they did, yeah. Service of Kenya, right? This is unfortunate.
Twajiamini. It's
This is
all
unfortunate
of us included.
because I see, with the emergence and creation and merging of one party to the next. Unfortunately, what we're seeing is that channels now are still. I mean, it's nothing new, but channels continually being used for the service of one or two individuals, and that's the unfortunate thing that
Actually,
we're
it
looking
goes
at here.
further. It goes further than that. It also provides an opportunity for anyone who's disgruntled or is unhappy with what already exists.
Yeah, this is what I was going to say, because it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that you then see the creation of political parties and the merging of political parties for anybody who feels slighted, for anybody who feels as if they were pushed out, for anybody who feels as if now, unfortunately, they don't have a place at the table anymore. It seems that what you can do now is form a party and then tell people that actually what you want to do is serve them. And your removal from a particular position actually did then not, it failed to present you with the opportunity to serve Kenyans. So now what we've decided to do, forming this party, the formation of such, then gives you an opportunity to serve Kenyans in a capacity that your removal then did not allow you to do.
Yeah.
And I think it is unfortunate that this channel is being used over and over again to hoodwink Kenyans.
Why is it unfortunate?
To hoodwink Kenyans into believing that people are actually there for their benefit.
Why
When
is
that's
it
not the
unfortunate?
case. That Kenyans are continually being hoodwinked. It's
No,
unfortunate.
that people are forming parties, new vehicles within
No.
which they hope to
Wha-
to
what,
work better.
again, what is unfortunate about it? People
Because-
form new parties all the time.
Yeah, but the purpose for which they're forming these parties, unfortunately, is not for the benefit of the country.
If the current government doesn't seem to function for the benefit of the people, and the people who are forming this new party are people who are formerly in government, why I'm asking the question is, why the surprise? Parties sometimes are formed just to ensure that votes are divided. If I form my new party in this place, I am hoping that I will be able to attract a certain number of people, and who I hope will also bring with them some votes. You know, focus on 2022. This is why I'm saying this isn't something that's coming to an end soon.
Oh, it's going to happen.
There
I
are
think we're
other
going to
regional
see a lot
parties
more.
that you'll hear being formed.
There are many.
Well, the I call them the ICC brothers. The ICC brothers had political parties as well
Yep.
that merged to form Jubilee
Yep.
and brought them into power. I think it's okay. Let there be a proliferation of political parties, because until Kenyans understand that their vote counts and that change is possible, these political parties will continue to proliferate for purposes of horse trading and consolidating. When Kiunjuri says, and it was even in quotes, that his party will never be sold, who had said his party was going to be bought. So he's attracting attention to himself, and he's actually saying he should have said sold in brackets to the highest, to the lowest bidder. It will only be sold to the highest bidder. So I think it is already it's already foregone conclusion. And our number one, I call him as predictable as a migratory bird. Kalonzo Musyoka is a perfect example. I mean, he has been migrating from time immemorial, moving his party from point A to point B, not forming necessarily new parties, although he's been in many parties. He goes from point A to point B with alarming regularity. Actually, it's not alarming. It's kind of comforting. If he had stayed in one place and never moved, we'd actually think there was something wrong with him. So when he said he would rather die than join Jubilee or be in a coalition with Jubilee, and last week he was busy there signing with Isaac Ruto, then
perhaps
you know it's predictable. So it is normal. But actually, we fought. People lost their lives for multi-party democracy in Kenya. So if we want to have 4,500 political parties, so be it. Let them form. It's their right, and they are able to. I just wish that Kenyans would understand how powerful their vote actually is, notwithstanding the systemic issues within IBC and the fact that my vote in 2017 did not count. Many people's votes did not count. So that is another subject, the IBC. But if Kenyans every single vote in Kenyan understood that my vote counts and change is possible. It should, it doesn't. It should, but the understanding is not yet there. That is why we're easily ethnically balkanized in Kenya today. That is why we're easily taken into what is it doing for people of Western or for people of Coast or for people of Northeastern or for people of Rift Valley or Central and so on. We are divided, but at the top they are not divided. In their coalitions and recoalitions and reformations, it's the same group of people we've been recycling since the 90s. And they just come. So Kiunjuri comes as yellow. As the what is it called?
As
the Service Party of Kenya. Where was he when he first was the youngest parliamentarian? I think in 97 when he first of all was elected MP. Which party was he a part of? And how many parties has he? So this
is the second party that he's forming in 10 years.
You know, and yet
in 2008 he formed a party called GNU. It participated in the elections in 2013. It had MPs in parliament. It has a governor in the name of the late governor of Nyeri, was a GNU party member. So this man has experience in forming parties and popularizing parties and getting people to come around, right? And then he noticed that, okay, so all of us, even as members of a party, are speaking the same language as the people in the other coalition of Jubilee. So they went all and took their parties into one unit called Jubilee. Got kicked out. Thought he had a stake in this government. He was kicked out of government. So he realized now because my GNU, I can't go back to my GNU because I signed off and said my GNU will remain dormant for X number of years. Let me come up with a new party. It's a vehicle with which he's using to propel his ideas and his agenda. Or his ideas. Ideas and agenda. It's his ideas.
You're really generous.
It's his ideas. His ideas are, this is a party that cannot sell. This is a party which is going to field people in the country.
Just one idea, tell me.
One idea?
That this guy has.
We are going to field candidates. That's an idea. We are going to participate in elections. That's an idea. What's the agenda? We want to have as many people in that house
as possible.
That's another idea. Hey, wonderful.
Those are ideas.
Okay.
It's the same idea as the other smaller parties.
This is an ideology-based party.
Ekuru Aukot has a party, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
Idea, ideology, agenda, same. Separated from what this guy has. Boniface Mwangi and the other people have a party. What's it called? Ukweli Party. Idea, agenda, whatever. If you don't go deep into it, it looks the same. Ukweli Party.
Okay, he said
Uongo
that.
Party.
I thought, Eric, as if you went deep into it, you found they were the same.
Let's hear now. He said, Kiunjuri says, the symbol is our promise. It stands. Wait now. See, let me finish.
It's a promise.
Let me finish.
Of course it is. What else could it be?
It stands. It stands for our genuine desire to serve humanity and fellow Kenyans. He said the current political events in the country were a clear signal of what parties were planning for the 2022 general election and beyond. And he announced he had intentions of running for Laikipia governor seat in 2022, but that this party would be fielding candidates across the country.
Yes.
Okay? So humanity. Could be something to jump on, Jero.
Hey.
He said humanity.
It is serving
and
humanity.
he
Look
wants
at
to
the
serve
symbol of this
humanity,
party.
and he wants to serve his fellow Kenyans.
The symbol of this party is a heart encircled by red, encircled by, what's this color again? Yellow. Is this yellow?
True.
Blue, yellow.
This
There's
blue
red,
bandana.
blue, a blue line.
And it's a yellow,
Yeah.
yeah?
Well, good for
It's talking about,
A man in
our
whose
promise.
tenure as Minister for Agriculture, we had one crisis after another when it comes to food security in this country.
A man in whose tenure Kenya did not suffer from the effects of food security as in 5 years as they had in the last 20. If we want to look at those statistics
Well, he
properly.
did not cause food insecurity. You can talk
And
about
no,
mismanaging the response.
please hear what I said. I didn't say a man who caused. I said under whose leadership it was not possible for as many things to go wrong as they did in the last 15 years.
No.
Look at it. Look at it.
He is not
Look
the
at-
reason we had the worst famine in the last 25 years. He's not the reason.
What were the measures that were taken? What were the measures that were taken? Look at what was happening when it came to farmers and how they were or were not paid. Fictitious payments that happened or did not happen for farmers. Look at what happened with the Galana project under his watch. Can I name some more? Under his watch. This is what we're talking about. We're not saying that he is the one that caused all
It
of
was
these things.
under his watch.
It was under his watch. We're not saying that we had this conversation a few minutes before, and we're saying that, look, you can't now divorce yourself and say that, okay, well, I didn't know what was happening or I tried as best. It was under your watch and there was a reason why you were put there. It doesn't mean that you were going to perform miracles and that everything was going to go smoothly, but at least there should have been some kind of let's even say explanation at best as to this is the reason why it was happening. There was a famine coming. I didn't know what we could have done about it. Maybe I worked too late. But no, it's not. Everything seemed to go wrong. And every time it was pointed towards agriculture. Every single time. There was a reason why he was removed. Now, if we want to say suddenly now that he wants to serve Kenyans, and in that time when he was under that docket, it seemed that maybe service to Kenyans did not happen. Is there going to be a difference now because of what political party has been formed?
Yes.
But Ndu, I would argue that he wasn't removed because of ineptitude and incompetence, which I will agree was definitely there. Wasn't he the one who told us to take selfies with locusts or something when the locusts were coming? Or I don't know what he was saying. So it's not so much, he was not fired because of that. He was fired because of politics. That I definitely agree that it was a political arrow in a direction of the spaces that he supports. In this particular instance, it was
He was the
Tanga.
warning shot.
He was the warning shot. He was the warning shot that people will not be spared. But it does not exclude his incompetence. And when you talk about famine, it's very interesting. A drought is something we can't control. It's climate change. You know, you don't have rain. Rains fail consecutively. Famine is public policy failure. Because how many countries on earth are arid, kabisa, and people are not starving to death?
Israel is a desert. So is Australia.
In fact, the Israelis pulled out of the Galana project and said,
And what
never.
about the bulk of the Middle East?
There you go.
What do you think they have
And
there?
how do they survive?
How do they survive? So famine is not a man-made or human-made or natural disaster. It's policy failure. And Kiunjuri inherited a juggernaut of a corrupt ministry. If you're looking at agriculture, if you're looking at energy, if you're looking at education, if you're looking at infrastructure, if you're looking at health, those ministries have problems. Today, even though you become Minister Agriculture, you'll also be eventually fired for
You'll become the
incompetence
most incompetent
because
person
many
today.
things will go wrong on
Yes.
your watch because you've inherited a gunia full
systemic issue.
of systems that have failed. On his watch, and now moving into Munya, Kefis has been destroyed. Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate. The woman who was at the helm with nary a scandal has been removed to make way for Sijui rotten potato seeds and whatever to come in because she refused to allow cartels. She refused to allow
operate.
cartels to operate. And without Kefis high standards of inspection, how are we going to export our horticulture? How will we do what we need to do to get our produce out there, which is a multi-billion shilling industry? So we cannibalize ourselves as Kenyans. Well, I say as Kenyans, I'm not gaslighting myself, as the Kenyan system that exists. And we kill ourselves. You come in, you inherit a system that's killing our ability to survive. You fire the good people. And what are you left with? So yeah, he was incompetent. I'm glad he left. Is Munya any better?
Well, we're likely to see that.
Was his predecessor any better?
In the very beginning, we're already seeing that, the signals have already been sent up to the sky that perhaps things are not going to get any rosier in this particular ministry.
So he's coming to serve the people.
And what about
And his
this
own terms.
maize
He's coming to serve
importation
the people
business,
on
the
his
maize import cartels, which have been in existence for a long time? If we had an entire session on agriculture alone, you'd need like 2 weeks of situation room just to discuss
agriculture. 19 minutes after 9, let's take a look at the weather. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest innovation.
All right, in Nairobi, it seems that we'll have intermittent clouds, sun's coming up every now and then, mostly cloudy conditions, highs of 23 today and then lows of 12. It's going to be a rainy afternoon in Nyeri, highs of 21. In Nakuru, as well as you move on west, the same will happen with highs of 23. Eldoret, mostly sunny conditions this morning, entering into an afternoon of thunderstorms with highs of 21. And in Kisumu, with highs of 27, it'll be a rainy afternoon well into Friday morning. Kakamega, 25 degrees, the high today, and lows of 15 will be rainy in the afternoon. In Malindi, partly cloudy conditions will lead to rainy conditions with highs of 28 and lows of 24. And in Mombasa, partly cloudy conditions at 26 degrees will lead to an afternoon of rain with highs of 28 and lows of 24. Stepping out of Kenya, in partly cloudy Kampala, 22 degrees and highs of 25 with intermittent thunderstorms in the afternoon. Dar es Salaam is mostly sunny this morning at 26 degrees with highs of 29. We'll see lows of 23. It's mostly sunny at 6 degrees in Johannesburg, highs of 17, and lows of 3 today. Clear skies in Lagos after a morning of rain, and the thunderstorms will start very soon. Any minute now is what we are told. Highs of 29 and lows of 24, and that'll be the order of the day. All right, last 3 cities for this morning, and it will be clear skies in New York, going to 24 degrees and a high of 31 today as the summer months really do kick in. In London at 19 degrees, highs of 31 with clear skies, and finally for today in Paris, clear skies and sunny conditions through the day with highs of 34 and lows of 22.
If ever you needed proof that the fight for multi-parties in the early 1980s have actually borne fruit, just go to the registrar of political parties and ask her, give me a list of the political parties that you've registered in this country.
How many do you actually have in this country?
Yeah, I don't even know.
I think this one was the 87th. That's what I read yesterday. 87 now with this newest one yesterday.
It's good.
87.
Yes.
This includes this new one, the Service Party of Kenya.
This was the 87th
Mwangi
now.
Kiunjuri.
Yes.
Remember, also just in the same region of Mount Kenya, Moses Kuria has a party, the new TNA, Transformational National Alliance Party, right? Then the governor of Muranga is associated with a political party. What's it called? A party with a cow symbol.
The registrar.
Yeah, you look like you should know.
Or understands all the parties in Central Kenya.
Why don't you know? The Civic Renewal Party, CRP, Mwangi Wairia associated with this one.
Good for him.
Right? If you go to any section of the country, in Ukambani you have Wiper, you have NAC of Charity Ngilu, you have Maendeleo Chap Chap, you have Tip Tip. Okay, Tip Tip was swallowed into Jubilee. You have other political parties operating in that region.
Excellent.
Right? If you come to Nairobi, many political parties. The only region I think that has a few parties is the Nyanza region. Chama ni moja. Single party.
Oh, there was a second one sometimes back that was set up by
Tuju's party, which now also ended up into Jubilee.
Yes, so
See?
it isn't as though we do not have many political parties in my neck of the woods.
You don't have many.
The multiplicity of parties is merged into one.
Okay.
Called ODM.
Sorry.
So all your ideas
It's a movement
and clever thoughts are submerged in
into
that
one.
particular
Into that one.
entity called ODM.
Don't be annoyed. Thank you.
And stay separate at your peril.
Well, you could join Ford Kenya. We have people in Ford Kenya who are there. We have people in Ford Asili. They even have offices there. We even have Kanu. Yes.
Which are supporters there.
There are supporters there, but so it's the old parties. As for new parties, no, that isn't fertile breeding ground for new parties. Let's put it that way. These peril, we actually left that particular arena. It's no longer at your peril. It's just that your followers will be few and far between.
So at your peril.
Political peril, that is.
At your political
Yeah, there was a time when you actually your physical well-being was certainly at risk. Now, no. It's all right.
It's okay. You can have your own party.
Just have your own party.
Kanayo. How many are you? Ko peke yako? It's okay.
That's all right. You and a few of your cousins. It's okay.
It's okay.
Do you know why for me it doesn't matter whether we have 87 or 870? Because at the end of the day, the power still is vested in one or two parties.
Yep.
And if you look at what is happening, while Kina Kiunjuri are forming new parties, the BBI reggae apparently is going on. And apparently we're going to have a referendum. And apparently certain things will be proposed. That might even bring elements of the legislature and the judiciary under control of the executive. So while people are forming parties, there are other agendas at play that will take us, as the argument goes, to not a de jure but a de facto one-party system, where the control will be so vested that it doesn't matter if you're party number 620, even if you had one MCA or one MP, doesn't matter. You'll have no say. But I think, as Kenyans, what we have been taught for 57 years is to react. You see, we spent a lot of time talking about Waiguru's theft or alleged theft. We're talking about the alleged this, the alleged mismanagement of COVID funds, the alleged, or when it goes from being alleged to a fact, when the Auditor General gives us report, we're always reacting. We are chasing those ambulances. We are always looking, oh my God, they stole this. Oh my goodness. But as a country, we have not ever learned how to act. Because who would we be on this show if we were talking about action, about what we need to do, not what people did and how we are reacting to it? It's a subtle difference, but it's something that I've been reflecting on for a while. So if we rise up and say we don't want BBI, I'm reacting to the fact that somebody has come up with BBI and a referendum. What is it that I want as Cherotich, as an active citizen who is fed up and trying to do something about it, which is not an equal and opposite reaction. Anyway, it's never equal, but at least a reaction to what is currently happening. But I think it is by design to keep us panting and out of breath. So we never imagine the possibility that good governance can happen to us. Good governance can be our portion. Good governance can be something that we aspire to as Kenyan citizens. We're just reacting, gossiping, complaining. When you think of 1 billion, can we count to 1 billion today? When will we finish? You say 1, 2, 3. And how does somebody wake up as a tenderpreneur and is a billionaire after 1 month? So as Kenyans, we are there, boggled. Our minds are blown all the time. Poof. We are constantly worried.
And then while you're worried, something comes and takes over.
Because the tenderpreneur is thinking and acting.
No. The tenderpreneur is not thinking.
Don't look at the negative side.
No.
Just look at the positive side of this person has looked, has
but
seen
if your
opportunity,
premises,
has acted.
But if your premises are illogical, your outcome cannot be correct. So if you're a tenderpreneur who is capitalizing on a form of crony capitalism, on corruption, kickbacks, money laundering, so that you can get a tender to supply something worth 3 billion shillings for nothing other than the fact that you grease some palms. You cannot turn around and clap for that person and say, what an amazing businessman or woman you are. Yeah. In the same way, I cannot clap for the little hustlers who are scamming mama so-and-so, because even though they have an idea, it is within the wrong, it's a wrong premise. So for me, that tenderpreneur, I do not admire. If anything, they have set us back. They've set young people back, older people back. Nobody believes it's possible to be comfortable on 100,000 shillings. Yes.
True. On your hard work and sweat.
Let's hear from Zachary, who's calling from Nakuru. Zachary, good morning.
Oh, good morning, guys.
Morning to you.
You are having a good discussion. Let me, okay, as you, now you know we are heading to the campaign time, yeah? 2022 is very near. And guys have started forming parties and registering them and saying all sorts of things. Yeah. Let me make it clear. to everybody who will care to listen, yeah?
Go ahead.
That is this idea, this notion of saying that if the Jewish Western belongs to so and so, I will bring this number of votes to this table. I personally feel abused, yeah? When somebody goes on the podium and says that if the Jewish so and so should forget Central Province votes, who is he or who is she, to come and determine that me, Zachary Babaizera, and I'm a I come from Central Province, that person has got the power to talk about my political inclination or my political direction. You see? And we are seeing that these political parties that are being formed, actually, if you ask those people and they tell you frankly, they want to propagate the idea of can we get a chance to now be the next people to eat, And once they get there, don't think that they are going to do anything different. The only thing is, the only proclamation they'll be making is that we are going to do this mpede mspede. You see, that word was introduced by somebody, yeah? Mpede mspede, When you start hearing such kind of proclamations or declarations, my friend, my relative and the rest, you better now start looking for how you are going to be able to be eating cassava, whether they affect you or not, and forget about meat, okay?
Forget meat at all, completely, yeah?
Forget meat.
Thank you, Zachary. Thank you very much. 9:30. This is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Formation of new political parties, party after party. What exactly does this mean, and what does it portend for us as Kenyans? 0719 012 600. Join the conversation.
All right, it looks good, guys. The worst is over. Trying to get in and out of the city shouldn't be a problem for you today. We know that around the country also traffic has not been proving to be very bad this morning. A little bit of a hold up right now coming back to Nairobi on Mombasa Road, and not anything else anywhere else. Joko Road seems to have eased off now. So we're not likely to see any heightened traffic until later on in the day. And we'll look again what happens tomorrow.
Political parties forming left, right, and center. Jerry, you're saying that it doesn't matter whether there are 1,000 political parties because the power is going to be vested in one or two or three big parties.
Yes.
But then that's still the other smaller parties. The problem we have, and you mentioned this in terms of does your vote count? I think we've had a conversation as well about whether that vote actually does count and the weight of that vote, and the conversation surrounding our voting system, and even going into the issue of proportional representation. Because if, like in the last election, what is it that the former CEO of IEBC was telling us? A huge percentage of people who turned up to vote did not get their voice heard. Yes, you participated, but you end up having like 60% of people went to vote, but it's not their government that's in office or their representatives that are in office from whatever level. If you look at any seat, MPs, 60% of the people who went and voted or cast their ballot for a certain MP, the one who won only got 40% support. So 60% are feeling disenfranchised. So you're basically, let's just say, your vote doesn't count.
You know why I say that we can have 1,000 political parties? Because for me, the ideology, the philosophy behind political parties is not yet clear. Like we said, it's quite generic. If one were to ask me, what is the ODM manifesto saying? What is the ideology behind it? I have no idea. What about ANC? What about Ford Kenya? Because maybe they all blur into one, saying more or less a similar thing around the people.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So for me, because our politics are not based on ideas and issues, Like you have Labour, you have Conservative, you have the Democrats, you have Republicans, you have Independents. We don't have that. So you can have 1,000 parties because ultimately nobody has any clear ideology that Kenyans can get behind. But there are some political parties that have a clear ideology, but do they have the following? So the flip side of having thousands of political parties is you can never consolidate a vote behind a particular ideology that's linked to a political party.
Right.
So the more you have, the more splintered it is. And eventually, as Kiunjuri says, he can't be sold. One day you'll see him being sold, and you'll see that this vehicle was a special purpose vehicle to push him into the arms of a coalition, not because he was pushing a particular ideology. So long as we don't have that, it doesn't ultimately matter. But if our votes counted, and this IBC issue is very serious, and I'm very concerned about this BBI and the referendum, because it is going to tamper even further with IBC, contrary to the idea that it's going to improve and make sure that our elections are not as fraught. It's actually going to stranglehold the IBC further.
Yep.
But put aside IBC, if we were able as Kenyans to come up with a protest vote, a powerful, massive protest vote. By protest, I mean, even if you don't win, to wake up and say, by the way, there are at least 4 million people who voted in a particular direction. And they voted consistently. But if those 4 million people are fragmented into 400 parties, then you'll never know how they will vote. They will never vote as a particular bloc.
Yeah.
So for me, the idea of a protest vote is diluted by the fact that there are no ideologies. The idea that one party could win over another. In 2017, so that I fully disclose, I voted for Raila. But I feel that my vote did not count. And even when the elections were nullified, and then there was another election again in October, which I did not participate in, which we did not participate in, you look at it and say, does it actually matter? So you end up with voter apathy, and eventually they will just run and say, let me take my 500 bob or my 1,000 bob from this politician as he or she is campaigning, because this is the
At least
only
they get
thing
something
I
out of
can
it.
expect for the next 5 years, because my vote means nothing.
William in Kericho, good morning.
How are you, sir?
We're well, thank you. Habari yako?
Mzuri. Nilikuwa nataka kuchangia kidogo outside the topic.
Yes.
But I wanted to ask something from Matthew Nduku. Okay, let me just speak to her. Madam.
Yes.
Nduoko.
Yes, there is something I wanted to inquire from you outside the topic.
Outside of the topic?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
from the lady. Yes.
All right. Maybe what we can do, William, is John will get your number and then we can have this conversation about outside the topic off air. Right? Could ask you something that's quite... So, madam. Anyway, William, talk to John and then this conversation continues. We are talking about formation of political parties. What does it mean? Does it really have an impact when you participate in any of these things? Kuria in Nakuru, good morning.
Good morning to you.
How are you doing, Kuria?
It's cold.
Poleni, Nakuru is cold this morning.
No, it's sunny. Sunny. Very hot, sunny.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, the issue is, you raised the issue of the early subject on for the government provision to people. I think it's ideal for government to open up and allow people to do business. There is a lot of things out there. People are not wearing masks all over outside the towns. So it's good for people to live for their lives so that all of us, we participate in building the economy rather than being fed by the same government that broke.
That is not able to feed us.
Yes.
Thank you, Kuria. George in Mombasa, good morning.
Morning, brothers and sisters.
Good morning.
Good morning, brother.
Yeah, I feel that what we need in this country is a law that restricts the political environment just to 3 political parties. Because as things stand now, what we essentially have is one big party getting into active formation in the name of ODM and Jubilee and KANU. The rest of the divide actually fall on the opposition side. Parties like Wiper, Ford Kenya, the Mwangi Kiunjuris, and all the rest are actually on the second side of the opposition. So it's actually a luxury, because every other time we hear people coming up with parties, and the list is just growing bigger and bigger for no good reason in this country. What we need is a law that restricts us just to 3 political parties. One major one, a second one in the opposition, and a third one for all those who feel they are not aligned to either of the two big parties.
So you want to force people to align themselves with either of two parties?
Yeah, but you see now, at what cost, ladies and gentlemen? It's all creating a lot of unnecessary noise in the political ground in this country. It's a luxury we don't need.
Okay.
Yeah, because we need to have some sense, actually, in our politics.
Thank you, George. Have a good day in Mombasa.
Thank you, too.
What do you make of what he's saying?
Well, I mean, if you follow his thinking and his argument, there's sense in it. But then there's the larger picture here. There's something called rights. Fundamental. We do have a Bill of Rights. And, you cannot really...
Right to association.
Oh, yes, we do.
We can trick that as well, because we are the same people who wrote that constitution. We can go into that constitution and say, yes, it's a right to association, but also talk about right to political affiliation. Then we say, we shall, this is how we are going to ensure that you must have...
Eric, what harm is there in people forming even a million parties in the country? What harm is there?
Like Jerry is saying, we can never consolidate ideas.
The thing is this.
Let's hear from Karaoke. Let's hear from Karaoke in Nakuru. Good morning, Karaoke.
How are you guys?
We're fine.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Are you all fine?
Yes, we are.
We have found out again, 1-0 Gekonya again. Though she's not the one.
Yes.
This is Cherotich.
This is Cherotich.
Cherotich, the freedom fighter. We have two now. We have two people who are very much interested in the people of Kenya. In fact, 1-0 Gekonya and now the Cherotich. But on the other hand, I would like to say this. Cherotich, I would like to maybe for you, because you're in that position that you are in, to come out with the strategy on how the people of Kenya are going to go about what we are talking about, ideology. Let me say that. Because these people do not even know what we are saying. And now they are just listening. I've been listening to you since morning. When we are talking about distribution of food. Now you are in politics right now. But the problem is that is lacking with our people is enlightenment. To know what kind of a person we are supposed to choose to elect. That's where we are. If you come to our place now, especially Nakuru Wakulima Market, wherever I sit down with 3 or 4 women, before I leave that place, I make sure that they have understood what type of people or leaders they are supposed to be. If you come to the market today, many people know what I'm saying. Right? Are we together?
Yep.
Yes.
So what I mean to say, Cherotich, please go and come out with something that is able to enlighten Kenyans. That's what I can tell you, because I've been trying.
So more active citizens like Cherotich, like Karaoke.
Exactly.
Because you see, what you do, Karaoke, is the same thing that Chero does.
Huh?
What you do is actually the same thing that Chero does, because you see, you sit down with people, you engage on matters, you engage at a higher level and say, this is my view of things, and you're very passionate about it. I'm sure if we came to Wakulima Market, we would talk to a few people who tell us we're in a dictatorship.
Yeah, tell her to. I'll welcome her in my entire market, so
I'll
that
come.
we can.
Atakuja.
Just come, please.
Thank
1-0
you.
Gekonyo, and please convey my greeting to her.
We will do that. Thank you, Karaoke. Paul in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
How are
Good
you?
morning.
I'm fine. I've been following your topic today, and it's an interesting one. It's a topic that can never be discussed in one go, and you say you've at least reached somewhere.
True.
The siasa in Kenya is what Moi said, siasa mbaya, maisha mbaya. By then, when everyone was booing Moi. And when I remember at that time, it was because people were clamoring for multi-party, and it was touted to be a very good thing. At the end of the day, when he gave them that opportunity to form multi-party and form several parties, what happened? They again came back and formed one party to remove Moi. And he asked them a simple question. if you are running away from one party, why are you again forming one party? And that is what is happening today. So we are forming several parties. Everybody is coming up with a party, but where do we end up? We bring all of them in Jubilee, we bring all of them in NASA coalition, and before
But perhaps,
the
Paul, that
elections
is
are there.
perhaps that's telling us something. You form those many parties, and then you come to a realization that for us to be able to move from point A to point B, we need to have unity of purpose, unity of vision, unity of speech, unity of ideas. And if we're all thinking the same way, then let's not be splintered all over saying, you know, I come from a different outfit. Let's all get into the same house, say we belong to the same family, we are siblings. Not that, you know, you belong to a different family.
Rightly put. Because at the end of the day, there is this gentleman who calls in, and I like his thinking sometimes. When he says that someone stands in a region and says, I speak for these people, that is just a way for me to say, I want to eat on your behalf. So allow me.
So with a new party, for example, like what we saw yesterday, and standing in place to say that they're serving for the humanity of Kenyans, you're saying that that's not the case. What really is happening here is an opportunity for me to, you know, wield power in a particular area. And
this guy just came up with a he had another outfit some years back. GNU or something. So what ideologies have changed that he's come up with another one that do not reflect the ones that were in GNU? Yeah. And I had Jerotich say that the problem, this guy was not ejected out of the position because of his incompetence. I disagree. And she also mentioned that you come in and find other characters that have been there in the system and what have you. We've seen people who have come and fought those systems and they have managed. Michuki, for example, in the transport sector. When they said people will not be on the road and will put on uniform, it was a joke. It happened. Matiang'i in the education sector, it happened. So it needs a goodwill, not individualistic thing. Because if you don't feel you're performing, why don't you resign? 10 people resigning in a ministry, then we will see there is a problem.
True.
So this guy is a non-performer, and he cannot lie to us that he's going to form a party that will help Kenyans. The thing is, they are bundling themselves together. Even when people say that Ruto helped Uhuru get this seat, very right, it sounds good, but at the end of the day, he formed a party, came up with people. I'm coming to the table with these people. So what is my share? And it's not the share for the people in the party. Some people even don't know they belong to that party.
It's personal share.
Most people don't even know they belong to that party. The names are there, but the people who are eating are very few. So at the end of the day, let us just say in Kenya, like Jorjit said, that people come out and they have discussions and reactions and everything. I once said that Kenya is a debating country. So the good thing, we debate. It's a maturity stage that we're going through in politics.
So let's keep debating.
And let us debate. But I still strongly believe we should have a policy that a rule that reduces the political parties, have fewer political parties. The US is having 2 or so political parties, and there is no problem. So we can have 2 or so. No problem.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one. It's 13 minutes after 9 to 10. 13 minutes to 10 o'clock. 0719 012 600. Good morning. And we're taking your feedback on the conversation we have on the proliferation of political parties. What does it mean? Does it mean anything at all for the advancement of our democracy? Willie in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning. How are you, gentlemen and ladies?
We are
Fine,
fine.
thank
fine.
Thank you.
I'm calling from Mombasa.
Yes, go ahead.
Now, I'm of this thought that political parties in Kenya will never stop springing up any day. Reason being that most of these political parties, and this is what I feel, that are formed from the backdrop of a tribal balkanization. And it's like the way we say in Mombasa, nyani ni wale wale, lakini msitu ni tofauti. So msitu being this sense is that it's what we want to do and what we feel that concerns us at this particular moment or the moment of the day. So I feel maybe Kenya will change one day when political parties stop being owned by individuals, but political parties being the ones that own these individuals. For example, a political party will front a candidate. And that essence is that this political party will not choose a candidate from a certain region.
Yeah.
But they'll present a candidate feeling that this candidate, the candidate is very strong to come and bring certain policies that are going to propel this nation to a different level. And until when we reach that particular moment, that's where I feel that we'll stop having these political people springing up, because at the moment, political parties are owned by individuals.
It's individuals. Thank
Yes.
you, really. Thank you. John in Nyandara, good morning.
Yes, good morning. How are you, wonderful panel?
Good.
We
Fine,
are
thank you,
fine,
John.
Morning.
Yes, I'm very fine. Now, this issue of political party, as I had told you before, these are commercial outfits being made now, being ready, be sold in 2022. So there's nothing special about Kionjuri. He's coming up with a service party saying that he's coming to serve Kenyans. Kionjuri has been on the scene for a long time, and recently he was in agriculture. He did not produce any sensible policy that we can be proud of. So I don't know what pride he's going to bring to us, with a new outfit. But he wants just to remain, politically viable come 2022.
Do you think he'll get supporters into this party?
Well, a few. Just a few.
Just a few.
Just a few within Laikipia, but not within the country.
Okay, John. Thank you.
Because he failed, and I want to thank that lady because she talked about corruption in the country. She contributed very well, and the problem should not be the leaders. The problem is us people, because these young people should come up and form their own political party, their own outfit to do away with this generation. If they can group themselves, they form the majority in this country, and they can bring that change that we want in this country.
Okay. Thank
But
you,
as
John.
long as okay.
Asante. The conversation continues right here on Spice FM. This is a situation room, Kenya's biggest conversation. A number of people now have talked about that thing of parties getting to a certain level where we've consolidated parties. We have 2-3 big political parties. Do you expect that we are going to get here just by watching them grow into this organically, or should we assist them?
Let me ask you a question in answer to your question. Are we first our tribe or are we first Kenyans?
We are first our family, then our tribe, then we are Kenyans.
Precisely. So,
and we are not different from anybody else in the world.
Our parties, there's a difference. There's a fundamental difference. If you look at some of these Western countries, the sense of nationalism is very, very key. You actually see it, it's palpable, the way they go about their business. And more so, the educational system also encourages this. It's inculcated in that system.
It's ingrained. Yeah.
So they feel, when you talk about their flag, the national anthem, they are passionate about these things. And what comes to the fore is their nationality. Us, our political parties follow our tribes. So, if we start from there, and you're asking, when will we be able to? You create a law to determine what, how tribes coalesce, because that's the direction that our political parties tend to take.
And if you go back, this is a pre-independence contrivance. Legislative councils established along tribal lines.
And that's why I'm saying now we wind assist this whole thing by changing into, say, come up with a political party. Right now, our law, our constitution and our law says that there is no political party that shall align itself according to tribe or region. All political parties that are registered in this country must have a national outlook. Law already says that, okay? Now, what I'm saying is, if we want now to push that whole agenda, say, you have an interim period as a political party. You come and you're registering TSP, the service party. You are not going to get a full charter of the party. We are going to allow you to come in and record your intent to be registered as a political party. We give you 1 year. Go around the country and properly campaign and get people to join your party. And all those people shall agree to your ideology, which is very clear. This is ideology. This is what you stand for. It shall be very clear. This is what we stand for. And then people agree and support you. But if not just by saying that, yes, you're going to register a political party because you're presenting 1 million signatures, because this is the law right now. Present a number of signatures. It shows that you have national appeal. Therefore, you are registered as a party. No. Give you a time and say, this is your window within which you must prove yourself to be a national political party.
You see, the tribal balkanization for me is so deeply inculcated that if I say a single thing about politics today in Kenya, I'll instantly be called a Tanga sympathizer.
Of course.
Because my name is Cherotich. So it is something that is so deeply ingrained in the psyche of Kenyans and is weaponized every election period, that even when you look at the Tanga Kieleweke rift, isn't the issue around Uhuru Kenyatta's dominance in Central? What is Ruto doing there? Why does he have such a stranglehold on Central? So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how nationally we force the outlook of political parties to be. It ends up being politically expedient every electioneering period to balkanize voters back into their respective areas, to let people fall back to what is most comfortable, my family, my tribe, and then my country. And I think that is a problem. That is a significant problem.
I think until those issues, because unfortunately, when we look at it, there actually is nothing wrong in taking pride in where you are from when it comes to that aspect of tribe. The problem is that it has those emotions, and that those emotions have been used in a negative manner because people realize the passion that people feel from where they are from. And unfortunately, it has been used politically to the point that people now think, breathe, live, vote by tribe. That's the problem. And until that issue is specifically dealt with, you're going to continue having these issues until political parties are formed based on tribe, because they realize that is how people make their decisions. Now, yes, until that issue is dealt with, you're not going to be able to solve this problem.
It's not even so much a matter of realization. It is like the air we breathe. It's how people think in this country. If you want to change that thinking, ensure that our educational system pushes an agenda of nationalism, something we've never done.
Yeah.
Push it. Let there even be a subject that is examinable. So from a very young age, a child gets to understand that they are Kenyans.
So that BBI story, what's containing the BBI proposal, we adopt at least that bit.
That particular bit, that bit.
Teaching on nationalism and ethos.
It's important.
It's important.
Very important.
It's important.
Okay, coming to the conclusion of the show. We want to thank you, Chero, very much for joining us today. I know what has happened. What happened? Frog. Oh, pole sana. Before we come to hear your goodbyes, let's talk about today's proverb, City, and what it means.
If you pick one end of the stick, you will also pick the other. It's an Ethiopian saying. There's nothing like half a stick. A stick has two ends. So when you pick it, you pick both.
just
Even if
picking-
you're just holding one end, the other end that you're not holding is part of the
It's still
stick.
being picked by-
It will also rise up even with the rest of the stick.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. You know, so long as we think the way we think because of who we are, some of the things that we want to change, the truth of the matter is they'll never change.
True.
Never.
True. Jero, thank you very much for joining us today. You've been running Humanity Kenya, which is just your own initiative to support Kenyans in need, and Kenyans are contributing to it. How do we participate in this if you'd like to?
Well,
And who else is
thank you so much. And
involved?
sorry that I forgot my bottle of water, so I've been coughing. It's not Corona. It's just something went the wrong way. I just want to say thank you to every single Kenyan that has been willing to support and continues to support Humanity Kenya. The pay bill number is 510800. So 510-800 for anybody who'd like to contribute. I also want to thank iPay. iPay Africa has been instrumental in providing a pro bono platform where money can be sent into through this pay bill and other forms, Visa, MasterCard, and so on and so forth. And I'm really grateful to them. They do not charge anything for that service except just the basic transaction fees for M-Pesa. I also want to thank Slash.Labs. They came up with the first website iteration, and I'm currently working with Skyline Design, a fantastic team, Houston Malandi and company. I think it is just amazing what we are coming up with in terms of the back office and also a revamped website for Humanity Kenya. They have all come in and said, we like what you're doing and we'd like to work with you pro bono. So for everybody who's been a part of this journey, and most importantly, those who have given, I want to thank them. And I want to remind every single one of the 1,804 families we have assisted so far, this is about your dignity. This is about you. We are here for you. It is unconditional, and we shall make our way eventually through this mess called COVID-19.
Thank you very much.
And thank
well
you,
done.
too, for having me. It's been great guest
Yes.
hosting with you.
Come again.
It's nice. It's fun. I've
You enjoy
enjoyed
it?
myself
Fantastic.
a lot.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you very
yes.
much for tuning in to the Situation Room today. Tomorrow we have another guest host. This is Dr. Mercy Koriru. You know her, of course. She's been the guest host for the season. She's back. She's been working from home. She'll be joining us tomorrow. We have a lot of stuff to talk about. 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. From now until 3 o'clock is uninterrupted music, sugar and spice and everything nice. And then Monique will be here to take you home from 3 to 7. Good morning.
Sugar and spice.